Call the advisory committee meeting to order at 7:30 p.m. All right. Welcome, everybody.
Whoa.
Good to see everybody. Let me pull up the agenda. All right, why don't we tackle the minutes if everybody's ready for that?
Good idea.
Okay. And thank you, Claire, for as always for putting them together. Marcy,
Well, I had to dust them off, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
I always have to reset them out. You remember these ones, guys? They came out 2 months ago. Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the.
December 5th, you want to do them in
Yeah, let's
chronological
do the order. Yeah, December 5th sounds good. Anybody have any edits to that? I had a small one. Claire, my only edit is it's the capital improvement and planning committee, not the capital planning and improvement committee. So it's the CIPC.
Yeah,
I think CIPC is in there twice, and then just changing it to capital improvement and planning committee.
capital improvement and planning committee. Okay, yep.
That's the only edit I had. Anybody else?
Not.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Sure.
Is there a second?
Motion.
Okay, that'll work.
Is there a second? Bueller.
Are these meeting minutes, Andrew?
Yeah, just the December 5th one. Did you have any edits?
I did not. No.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. Roll call vote. Tim.
I abstain.
Okay. Howard.
Aye.
Larry. On mute.
I abstain also.
Marcy. I can't hear you. All right, I'll go to Adam first.
Aye.
Marcy can still can't.
Unmute.
Give us a thumbs up if you're aye. All right, I saw a thumbs up. Okay. The next one was
So that's 402, right?
402. Yes. Then the next set of minutes was December 13th. Anybody have any edits on that one? Claire, the only edit I had was line 62.
Okay,
I think it's when Jim was talking about its potential issues with the legislative mandate of same-day voter registration if it is passed. I don't think they've passed it.
okay.
And then that is the only edit I had. Anyone else? Seeing no other edits on me. All right. Is there a motion to approve the December 13 minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Marcy. Tim.
Aye.
Larry.
Aye.
Adam.
Aye.
Howard.
I abstain. Was not there.
And Marcy, we're voting on the December 13th minutes with a small edit. Do you have any more?
Actually,
No
oh,
edits.
sorry, this probably isn't worth revoting for, but I did just notice on line 5, Tim Martell's name has a trademark next to it.
Because he is TM.
He's
right?
one of a kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is the Tim, so.
All right.
So
I amend my motion to fix that. And seconded.
It's still TM.
it is.
Yeah. formatted Scribner's error. We don't need to revote it. Marcy, I think you're the only one that hasn't voted.
Yeah, aye.
Andrew is aye. Okay. So is that
We,
5-0-1, Claire?
I had Adam and Howard both abstained.
Oh, no, I'm an I.
You're an I. Okay, all right. So we have 5-0-1.
Right, last one, the January 6th minutes. I had no edits. Anybody else?
No edits.
Right. Is there a motion to approve the January 6th minutes as written?
So moved. Second.
All right, roll call vote. Tim,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Howard. You're on mute.
Swear I hit that button. I will also abstain. I was not at that one either. So.
All right, Andrew is aye. 5-0-1. Claire, thank you very much.
Okay.
We are all caught up. We are out of the penalty box.
For now.
Till
Okay.
next week.
Yes. Okay. Let's get to some fun. Chair's report, meeting schedule. I think we'll see how we do tonight. Select board's meeting next week on the 27th to finalize the warrant. So assuming we are good to go, and we could certainly mark some stuff as at town meeting. But I don't think we'll need a meeting before then, but we'll see how tonight goes. And future meeting topics, I think we're basically stuck on budget and warrant until town meeting for now. Okay, let's take a look. I'll share my screen on where we are at with the budget. So the current version that's in the folder includes the one lieutenant position. And it's a 4.79% year-over-year increase.
So it doesn't include dispatch?
It does not include dispatch, correct? Those are included in the warrant, basically under the two separate articles as well.
But it includes a lieutenant?
The lieutenant position.
Oh, Howard. Do you want to just attack this now, Andrew?
Yeah, no, yeah, this is what they put together. This isn't what necessarily we agreed to. So it just as a starting point, this is what we have. So do we want to go straight for the police position, or do we want to go work our way down and just see if we have any issues with any of the budgets before we get down to police?
Well, is police right now the only area of disharmony with the select board?
Do we know yet? Do we actually
I think-
discuss?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we don't really know because we haven't voted them, but I think Marcy, you had some concern on the DPW budget, I believe.
Yeah, I just still have questions about the junior engineer.
Okay.
Just from a point of, I guess, of clarification. So I do have, I would hold that for discussion, yes.
I think those are the two right now that are up in the air from an article, from a budget perspective. I think we have a couple from articles. Let me just double check. Yep. No, I think that was the only two. So why don't we start? And if anybody else have anything else in here they want to hold besides police and
So-
DPW?
I apologize as I'm not caught up. What did ever happen with the fire truck and
The fire truck is in there on a bonded capacity at 1.3 over here in the capital articles. And we can do capital. We can cover off each. There's some capital ones I want to talk about too.
Yeah.
Why don't we save that for the capital section? And just finish off on operational first. So what, Tim, why don't you start on police in terms of the conversation we had the other day and kind of catch everybody up to speed?
Okay, I'm gonna do as best I can. I'm gonna be fair. Chief presents a good point. This is mainly in regards to the body cams. When the body cams went live, nobody knew that it would, there was a total cost of ownership here that was unknown at the time. And there turns out that there has been a significant amount of labor associated with these cams because they're getting a lot of requests. And work has to be done to review the footage, redact the footage, et cetera, provide the footage. The chief has requested, this is currently being done by a lieutenant. And the rationale for that, which is, it's valid, is that the chief does not want somebody in the union responsible for this work, which is basically an oversight function for other people who are in the union. And the lieutenant is not in the union. Chief is not in the union. That's pretty much the the reason why, it's just a significant amount of labor and the current staff doesn't have the capability to do it. And they don't want to farm it out. I don't want to use the word farm it out. They don't want to delegate it to somebody in the union. The downsides are, in my opinion, are pretty rough. Andrew, I think you said it basically amounts to $250 an hour for somebody to sit in front of a video and process it, which is incredibly expensive. From my perspective, that is not a good use of town funds. No other options have been presented to us. My take, and I'm going to segue a little bit, and you guys tell me to shut up. It really bothers me when I hear people say, well, the department head's the expert, so do what they want. I hate that, right? Because the department heads are not elected. They don't make decisions. They're not supposed to make decisions, right? They're supposed to give options. They use their expertise to advise. The select board or the elected board, whichever one it is, they take those options and they make a decision. So it really bugs me when we have a situation where no options are being given. It's just the preferred option of a department head. And then people are saying, well, they're the experts, so go do it and support them. Okay, that's a segue. I'm sorry. There are other options here. And I'll let Andrew talk. I believe, Andrew, you mentioned that there are other towns who do this a different way. There's also the option of not having body cams. We've only had them for a very limited period of time. We survived for a long time. These are options that I think need to be considered before we just bring yet another lieutenant, another body on board, another lieutenant, which has all of the repercussions that you would expect from bringing on an expensive position. Anybody, if I've missed something or I've misconstrued part of that, please feel free to tell me.
No, I think,
So. Go ahead, Adam.
you go
Or
first.
Ari.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a really good overview. I've been thinking about this a lot since the meeting last week when I voted against it. It's the primary thing I've been thinking about when I've been in advisory mode. And pretty much Tim hit all of the arguments that I've come up with respect to this whole issue. This is not, in my mind, just a police manpower issue. If the chief had said that he needed another lieutenant in order to have sufficient officers on duty to perform normal police activities, and that he really needed it, I'd probably be all in favor of that. But the concept of spending whatever it is, $75,000 a year or $250 an hour or whatever to hire a lieutenant to review video footage just seems like a questionable use of money to me. And maybe the alternative is either have a union person do it. I understand the problem there, and maybe that's not really a solution. Hire an outside contractor who's been trained for all of this and doesn't have any allegiances at a reasonable rate, like, $100 an hour, or get rid of body cams. I'm just not sure. I'm just not comfortable with the current proposed solution for those reasons.
But Howard,
So I sat with Chief, this was one of my assignments. Have similar thoughts. One, the position, while it is heavily on video, there were other tasks involved, which is, it wasn't just sitting in video all day. They were responsible for, the house, the armory, he had a list of other duties that went with him. With that said, I agree with you. Yes, we got body cams. We didn't know what pertained to it, and there's a lot of work. I questioned the chief when we had this, that does it need a lieutenant? I fully agree. It does not need to be, it should not be someone in the union. However, a trained paralegal or someone with, some kind of background, says most of the people asking for this content are lawyers in other cases, might be in another appropriate position other than a lieutenant. I think we all seem to have a similar concept that a lieutenant grade person seems to be a large ask for this. So I don't want to keep beating the same way. The only thing I want to be fair about with the chief is it was not just watching videotape. He did have other plans for a lieutenant in that position. So it's not just videotape, but maybe he needs someone else, lieutenant later on, but for I think separate the two to deal with the videotape ask. It could be, a civilian, in my opinion, a trained civilian, because they have to know what they're looking for. And yes, they're going to see things that normal civilians don't see, but a paralegal, a retired lieutenant coming in on a part-time basis or something seems like a much more fiscally responsible way to go than hiring a full-time lieutenant into the job.
Adam?
Do we know the nature of the request? So Howard, you mentioned it, it's typically used in a legal capacity of some sort, but what are the requests?
So some of them are coming from like Fox 25 News and agencies like that are just want a collection of each.
And do we have an obligation for any of these
Yes.
requests, whether it's you do?
Freedom of information, you're required within a certain amount of time to fulfill that request.
And it has to be done for free. You can't
No.
charge.
You can
No,
charge.
you can charge,
You can
but
charge.
it has to be, anytime, a child walks into the screen, their face has to be blacked out.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
So-
a nominal. I don't know the exact amount, but it's not $250 an hour.
Yeah,
I mean-
so I kind of looked at this. I'm sorry, go ahead, Adam. Let you finish. Your
I was
thought.
going to ask if that's, is that, I agree we should see options. Is that a potential option that we can explore, which is covering the cost of whatever the editing is?
I find that unlikely because somebody somewhere is going to call that economic discrimination.
That's,
Yeah, I think you can charge $25 an hour by statute, and you can charge more, I think, if you get permission from wherever. But again, to Tim's part, you have to kind of justify it, and you have to make sure that it's, feasible or economical or whatever. But
I am
Marcy.
guessing Marcy knows more about this than we do. So.
I do know some about it, but that wasn't my comment. I just wanted to say before you kind of sum it up, Andrew, that I completely agree. Tim, your comment the other night was completely spot on, and I appreciated your remark that while we may not know more than the chief about the day-to-day needs, we certainly are here to review, advise, and think on behalf of the taxpayer. The fact that these section chiefs here keep coming forward with proposals, when you ask them questions about alternatives, they have none. In regard to the engineer, I'll talk about that later. I asked, would this be work that someone else would be assigned to do? Is it that important? And the answer to that was no. So I definitely feel like there's no pushback, and we have to be thinking about the increased tax burden in the town while we're also looking at affordable housing, because if the taxes keep going up, we're going to tax people out, and that's not an overstatement. It keeps rising and rising. So I would like to see the chiefs come forward sometimes with sort of a standard work assessment, a needs assessment, and alternatives to choose from, not just sort of the highest level ask, which in this case is the lieutenant to review body cam footage. So that's all I really wanted to say, is just that I've given it a lot of thought, and I completely agree with Tim's statement the other night.
Tim, did you have one more thing to add?
Yeah, on top of that, just adding on to it, the fact of the matter is the Chiefs historically have not been shy. I mean, they take care of their department, they take care of their people. There are other groups that are shy, right? The Council on Aging, it took, some groups just don't want to ask for money. How long did it take the Council on Aging to finally get a second bathroom in the senior center, right? That should,
I mean,
so it's our job, it's a select board's job to bring balance to the budget and not to just support the ones that do speak up. And I think that's a problem.
I think, Tim, didn't the finance team, aren't they one resource down from like 8-9 years ago or something like that? They just keep pushing it off.
In what sense?
I thought they were down in FTE. They had one more FTE, and basically they were like, okay, I can make it, another year without it, and they just keep pushing off the request.
Yeah,
With that said, the need for the video position, I think, is real. I think there's a lot of work that is tied into that video position. I don't have a problem with asking someone, for someone to handle that, it's something we didn't thought. My thing is, does it need to be the level that he's asking for?
But is it how?
Let me try to kind of bring it all back together. So I was thinking about this like Larry a lot since our last meeting. So one, I have found software out there with AI that you type in, you want to cover faces and whatever, and it will obscure them for you. You can go and you can say, I want all papers and credit cards, license plates, faces, and it will process it for you, right? So I think there's some more due diligence to kind of talk about what Marcy said that needs to be done on this video part. And I think it also needs to incorporate, I know, Mr. Purple and his office have been doing a lot of public records requests and, spending a lot of their time doing it as well. That we probably need to look at this holistically in terms of public records request and how do we handle that from a staffing perspective that isn't a lieutenant level. So technology related would be great. Staffing, again, if we're going to do it as economical as possible, I would suggest maybe we have them take this back, do some more research, and possibly this is a fall town meeting thing if it becomes pressing enough and there's enough information that we take it up then. But I don't know if I'm ready to include it in the annual town meeting.
May I ask a question, Andrew? And I don't know if this is allowed, but I'm curious, is the board generally favorable of the body cams and the money that goes around processing them, and is just looking for a more economical solution? Is that the general stance of the board?
I mean, I don't want to speak for the board. I mean, personally, I think the body cams are a good feature. I think we need to figure out a way to make the cost. I mean, if we had the AI software, for instance, and it wasn't very hard for us to redact it, and the $25 an hour charge paid for the services to send, put that information out there, and it, self-funded, yeah, then I'm okay with it. Spending $150,000 to have an extra staff to do that work, no, probably not as in favor of it. But I defer to anybody else on their opinion. All right.
So I think the II is a good start. When it's done, someone still has to review it. It could certainly cut down the hours. It's not infallible yet. Right?
No.
Again, I don't invalidate the need for, no one thought that there'd be this much need for video editing. And if they are getting those requests and they have to do them in a certain time frame and they have to do it right, then there's a need to do it. But I think you're right. I think this needs to be explored more. And I did push him, is there any other options? And I just got, nope, has to be a lieutenant. And I'm like, and I get that they can't be unionized, but I think there's other options out there, so. So I don't know how we push that down, do we ask them to revise their budget? I mean, how does that
Well, I
work?
think we would basically go into their budget. We can, we know what the cost is and just
Right.
revise
We
the
can take the
budget
line out.
and say the amount we're approving is to support is X, which is, 100 and whatever $1,000 less than what it is currently.
I guess procedurally, does that get changed on the floor or do we ask them to change it ahead of time?
It's a very interesting topic, some of which people have differing opinions, and I haven't quite gotten an answer on exactly what it is.
Okay.
Depending on who you ask, there's different conversations of who owns the budget that goes in the warrant. The select board owns the warrant. In a lot of towns, the select board does their budget. It then goes to advisory. Advisory then has the pen, can make all the edits they want, and that's what goes to the town meeting. Then anyone, including select board, could amend a budget, but the budget that is voted on at town meeting is advisory's budget. That's what my understanding was. I think there's some disagreement on that, so that's what we need to clarify, but we can certainly clarify what we support. And then it's either us amending what's in the warrant or somebody else amending what we put in if they don't agree. Sorry, Larry, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just had a question. Do we have any idea? I mean, there's also context here, and we've talked about this a little bit, but does anybody have any idea what the ongoing other costs of the body cams are? I mean, now that we've purchased them, is it zero or is there maintenance or contracts or, I mean, the problem is that this is one number that's part of a total cost of ownership for these things. And, the question isn't necessarily, do we want this lieutenant, but rather is the total cost of ownership, given that I think we probably agree that overall the body cams are a good idea. Although in a town like Southborough, I guess I would question it a little bit, not a lot, but the question is, what's the total cost of ownership? If the total cost of ownership of these things is $200,000 a year or $225,000 a year when you wrap everything in, that's a lot of money for what I consider some but marginal benefit. And I'm just wondering what the context is.
So once they own them, as long as they're not broken, they should last, several years. The only thing that if you run out of storage for all this video content, you need more storage. If you're a computer guy, what is storage cost? It's minimal.
Storage.
And it just depends how much content is being stored, and we don't know what the retention policy is of how long they actually have to store it for, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really just storage unless they need additional cameras.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a feeling that the hardware is going to be replaced every 3 years, Howard.
I would say 5.
Yeah.
Could be 3, but 5.
How much did they cost?
I don't know which system they got, so I
I think
can't
it was
answer
a couple
that.
$100,000, but it was paid for by a grant, I think.
First time. Well, if you pay for it by grant the second time.
All right, so that's $40,000 a year if they're replaced every 5 years.
I think the value of them is good. I think what they're designed to do, really is protect the town as well as the officers for, with a record of what's even routine traffic stops. And maybe I'm biased. My company makes them. It's not my division, but I think they do good. And keep people honest, but just like, body cams, just like dash cams, right? Even dash cams on cars are becoming very popular for exactly that reason, right? Video doesn't lie.
The budget's
Sorry.
using this as a justification to bring another lieutenant in. What
Yes.
happens if a year from now, there is an AI-based software that can do 90% of the processing? There's no way they're getting rid of that lieutenant.
No, like I said, Mike, there were other duties assigned to that lieutenant as well, so.
Yeah, but if the justification is the body cam, right?
I
just
think
think
part of the justification was the body cam, but I agree with what you're saying. I think we all agree that I think we're all hung up on not putting words in everyone's mouth, we're hung up on the lieutenant position, that if it was someone, for that was more purposeful and less senior, I think we would have less problem. Do I have that correct?
No, I think that's, so if I think to read the room, I think we're not quite there to approve the lieutenant tonight. I mean, if a better case and comes before us, and again, they've exhausted every option, they've looked at AI, they've looked at having a citizen, or a police officer doing the work. And then this is the only option left, and they come to us at a fall town meeting. I think I'd have more thoughts there. But I think I haven't heard enough exhaustion of other options that I've seen other places do for me to feel comfortable with this one.
I think we agree.
All right. So I just did a quick, so that position was 121,000. They could add 10% for overtime, and then there was $950 for the uniforms. So if we go back to the police budget, that would be the total for that resource.
Do you recommend cutting it in half
What do you mean?
instead of removing it? I mean, is your plan to go back to the select board and see if they are willing to look at other options, or is your plan to go to town meeting with a different number?
My plan would be to take it out of the budget altogether. So we would support a budget here of 2486 instead of 2621.
So that's historically problematic. Town meeting doesn't like leaving a problem unsolved.
Well, the problem's not unsolved. It's just do some more research and come back to us.
Yeah, I mean, they're solving it today, right?
That's fair.
Yeah, we haven't missed anything, right? I mean, and we're going to have a fall town meeting this year. I mean, it's going to happen. But so I mean, it's July 1st versus September, October, right? And it takes us a while to fill a lieutenant position usually anyway. So it just adds a little bit of time in there to have some more research done. I would be, like we talked about when Chief came in on the full day thing, or in our last meeting, I would be okay with putting $25,000, whatever it is, to do a staffing needs study and have this covered and have somebody do this full analysis on roles, responsibilities, and the best way to do this, and have the research and the data from a third party to defend it. But I think right now I'm missing that defensible position. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up something along the lines of what you just said, also answering the comment that town meeting doesn't like to leave anything unsolved, is if we're going to take this out of the budget, maybe it does make sense to propose some amount that gets put in. You said they should do more research into things like AI. Well, clearly nobody in the police department has the expertise to actually do that. So it would be best be done by finding somebody who has that expertise, and that might cost money. And therefore proposing that we fund, I don't know what the right number is. You said 25, maybe it's 10, but some reasonable amount of money to actually have somebody do that study that's has less skin in the game, might be a reasonable way of closing it off without just dropping it.
Yeah, I'd be okay with, instead of taking out the full 134, of taking out, 110 or 105 and telling them that I mean, again, we set the budget, that the actual staffing hires is, that's up to the chief and select board to appoint the positions technically. So we can't stop them from hiring that person, but we can cut the budget to the point at which it might be difficult to do that. So that sound like a decent message that we cut it, say 110? Something like that.
Are you guys,
That would
What
be
is that?
24,000.
What'd you say?
So that would leave 24,000 then.
So that would leave, 24,209 roughly.
I guess why not force them to come up with some solutions though before we just put it. I know it's not an arbitrary number, but
Yeah,
We
I mean,
could, but
realistically, what does
I
that
think
get
they
you?
might need some help coming up with the solution. That's why we put some money there.
yeah,
But that's an annual. That's almost an annual number. I mean, do you wanna,
We could add it to the reserve fund or something and approve transfer that
Yeah.
way. But I figured we just, kind of basically earmark it for miscellaneous contracted services, which I think is where they've paid for it out of their budget in the past.
Howard makes, a point that we're not giving them a one-time bump here. We're giving them an annual, right? We're raising their budget.
Yeah, but there's one-time money in budgets, all the time. It's not like it's a huge amount.
well, that's the other part. What do you get for 25,000? Is that just, do you think that's just a consulting fee to find it or?
No, I mean,
is that a person?
that's what Chief thought that it would cost to do what we had gotten from Chief Paulus like 10 years ago, which was a staffing needs assessment by a third party that looked at the size of the town, how we're set up, the number of calls,
Yeah, so it's a consultant. Okay, so it's a consultant, is what you're,
a consultant to come in that does this professionally for police departments all over
Sure.
the country and says, based upon police, best practices, basically, this is
Mhm.
what your department should look like, which is what we got 10 years ago, and we spent the last 10 years getting up to that level. And you're actually over that level technically by one officer. So that's where like the extra officer, I had trouble justifying it because technically we're over what the last best practice study said that we needed. So maybe it's time to refresh that. And then again, we have some more ammunition to talk about staffing for the police department.
I like that idea of the, having come out and evaluations.
Do I have a question? Do we think that there'll be any staffing, staff left over, so to speak, or FTEs that could be used for this purpose if we regionalize the rec?
I do.
Because that's another thing I was thinking, like, right, isn't it a bit, untimely that we may be regionalizing and then, goodness, maybe we have, I don't know, some extra employees that want to stay that could do this work that are less expensive than a lieutenant. So, I mean, maybe before we need a study, that some of that could help too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Or
So I think,
is it something the regional dispatch that we're doing would have that capability too? They would have all the video. They'd have the equipment to do this as well. Is that something we rolled into that?
yeah, I mean, I had thought about that, especially with what's going on with the townhouse public records request is, we want someone to be manning the front desk at the public safety building 24/7. Could that person be a public records officer that handles public records requests and gets the information for gun permits, that does this video work and, other things, right? I think that would be a good use of that person's time. I mean, you can be editing a video and then go up to the window, help somebody and come back and, it's not really, it's, not as time sensitive as being a dispatcher certainly. So, that was one thought that role could maybe fill that. But again, that's more of a select board purview plus the chief's purview. But that was one of the thoughts I had. But I think that's something that we asked for them to do as part of that study. Yeah, so I think, especially if you look at that study and have them have a lens of it of what if we go regional versus not go regional. That also helps me feel better about do we need 4 additional dispatchers, right? If you don't go regional and this is how many calls and the volume and there's a safety issue unless you do that. I think having a third party with credentials to do that would make me feel better. Okay. All right.
I'm good with that.
All right. So I'm gonna leave this.
Are you looking for a motion at this point, Andrew?
So right now, I'm just gonna I think we kind of settled on adjusting the number. And kind of why we did it and the justification behind it. Again, we can't make people do things, but we can adjust their budget down. So I just kind of made that adjustment here for 110,000, which leaves them about 25,000 left over to do a study if they so choose.
Would we take a vote on that since we're not approving it as is or no?
So what we always do is we approve when we vote on each individual budget and the dollar amount. So we would say like we support the police department budget 210 in the amount of $2,511,029. Right, and that would be our motion. So I think in a minute we can go through the list of all the budgets that we support, assuming that we're good with this number. And then, are we good with the police and keep it at that 2511 number?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I guess the only other one we want to talk about DPW, Marcy. I think it's mainly just the you're mostly concerned with the engineer, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone else has any concerns about that. This one was less concerning to me than the lieutenant. I did appreciate that Mr. Cundiff did, I would say, basically downgrade the position. Although Adam had a good point at one point, which is this a position where we wouldn't want to downgrade it if we were expecting the person to do sort of more advanced work and maybe get more bang for our buck by adding, another 40, 50,000. So there's that angle too. But at this point, the junior engineer to review pavement projects and measure the pavement at a certain amount to prevent potholes later and sort of ensure quality. When I ask Bill kind of about this, he has 3 supervisors. Would he reassign any of them to do this task? Is it that important that he would find time in their schedules to do it? He didn't. He said no, that wouldn't be feasible. So, I just wasn't convinced that the payoff for the paving that exists 4 or 5 months of the year to add another position was really compelling to me. But that's just my take. So others may feel differently.
I think for me, I think DPW is one of those departments that Tim mentioned that has historically always tightened their belt and not been, quote unquote, asking for more things, right? They've always come in under budget, and Karen was great about doing that. And per capita, we actually have a pretty small DPW department compared to other towns. I think where I saw a lot of value, and I think the taxpayers will in this position, is this person's kind of like the point of contact for roads. If you want a sidewalk, if you want to know if you have pothole issues, this person will be working with Beta to do all the testing on the roads, understand the data. We'll get the GIS set up and work with Capital in terms of sidewalk prioritization, kind of really maintaining and owning the roads. I just haven't felt that they've had that kind of oversight and real, point of contact for the roads, especially, right? So it's kind of like having, a tree warden. It's kind of like the road warden, right? Which I think for, relatively short money. And I think to have somebody here that can do a lot of work for somebody that is more expensive, and then Bill can stamp it as a PE, that we don't necessarily need a full PE for $40,000, $50,000 more, that this person can do the work that they were trained to as an engineer, and Bill can stamp it as the PE. I think it's a good bang for the buck, and I think this is one of those where I kind of have a little bit of that. He's a department head and knows best, kind of a thing. But I think he did sell me on it in terms of that aspect, and I was kind of willing to go with him on it.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Howard.
go ahead, Adam.
Oh, I was gonna say I actually agreed more with Marcy. I didn't feel like there was a very compelling argument either, and for me, it wasn't necessarily the need that I disagreed with. It's not my area of expertise at all, but I was a little confused as to why some of the companies that we partner with don't have expertise that would be sufficient in this area versus a more junior engineer. And that was the reason why I had brought up the question of, if this need is so important, why are we not looking for someone with true expertise and paying the extra money for all the other reasons that Bill mentioned that, would be of value to have someone here. It also he felt pretty confident he could find somebody that fit the job description, which again he was explaining and articulating a lot of ways that there would be value, but also sort of the sophistication that this person, at least my interpretation, sophistication required to do the job well, but yet looking for a very junior, kind of inexperienced person to do it. So the dots didn't really connect for me either. So that I didn't feel compelled and did find it also perhaps a little bit more of a nice to have that was being stretched into something that was more important than it really was. But again, not my area of expertise. I don't know anything about roads or engineering. So that was just how I came away from his initial presentation.
So I kind of see the value in the position and having someone there to maintain the roads and whatever else is thrown out there. I can think of how many culverts were built over the last couple of years, et cetera, and someone to maintain. And we have that GIS survey being done of all the roads, someone to maintain and monitor that data isn't necessarily a bad idea. I had two questions. If you hire a junior person, how long do they stay? They tend to get the experience they need, use that to go get their license, et cetera, and they move on and we're starting over, training someone again, et cetera, et cetera. And then my only other question really is this the year to do it? With the budgets the way they are and where we're moving, and again, trying to keep taxes down. I think, Adam, you said it, is it a nice to have or is it a need to have? And that's the other part I'm stuck on. So I think it's more of a nice to have, and I see value in it. I really do. But is it a need to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those we having somebody do the work, we could outsource it and we could have, Fuss and O'Neill or some of those places. But I mean, the lowest cost I think they'll charge you is probably $100 an hour, and this guy's like 38, right? Plus benefits and other stuff. But and you keep some of that knowledge in house, I think. And in terms of your question, is this the year? It's not the year in terms of the taxes, right? We know we're up against it, but I feel like we're on the precipice of a big road project, right? We're kind of getting ready to do the sidewalks, and we had the ARPA funds that they kind of pulled that. We're starting to build up some Chapter 90. We're going to do the beta study to see what roads need to be done. So, we might have
Right, but the beta study is going to do a lot of that work for us. That the beta study, we're already paying for the beta study to do that work, and that's going to give us a report and tell us what needs to do, et cetera.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't leave anything for this position to do. It's already we're already paying for that to be done.
Well, what I meant by that is once the beta comes out, most likely, or it could, especially with all the sidewalks that people in this town, we might end up saying, hey, let's do a $10 million bond and do a huge road project, right? At which point in time, this resource is going to, earn its be its weight in gold, right? But if you're not doing much road projects, maybe being the road guy isn't that valuable. But feel like we're getting to the point where we need to do some big projects, especially if we're going to do Cordova Road, if we're going to do Framingham Road and all that stuff. I don't know.
But I guess correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew. Just from a project management standpoint, if you have a lot of projects, I can see the value in that. But it seemed like one of the selling points of this was to be able to pinpoint if there was risk of going outside of a certain tolerance. I don't know the technical terms here, but going outside of a certain tolerance when they were actually paving and building, completing the project. And I was not sold, I don't think I heard a real data-driven argument as far as, likelihood of this person catching something and what the cost associated of not catching it would be. And so to me, I don't think it was a fear tactic being used, but it was sort of, a very theoretical or somewhat hypothetical argument on the main purpose of this role. I get all the other extras you might get with it, but that's where I also just it wasn't clear to me, are we actually getting the benefit here, or is this just making us feel good?
I think it's having like you guys deal with projects, I deal with projects, having consultants without staff supervision is just a recipe for disaster. And I think that's what ended up happening with the school paving project, which is why it was like significantly over. Bill did say that he felt that if this person was on that project and was monitoring it like they would be, that wouldn't have occurred. And I think that was $100,000 overage. So I think, and Bill did say that there's more things that this person would be doing, but he thought that just monitoring the paving alone and making sure they're doing the job right and extending the life of the paving projects more than justified the cost. And then looking at the calculations, it seems that way. But again,
Andrew, I agree with Adam on this point. Why are we contracting with companies that we would then have to hire a position to police them for, right? Like I completely disagree with that notion as an argument as to why we need to add an FTE.
you always need employees to oversee consultants.
Well, again, if we're having that much of a bad experience, we should probably think about who we use. So I don't think you can make both. Maybe is both arguments true? Like we're not using contractors that do good work and we need somebody to monitor them. I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much expertise in paving that you can't I mean, again, I don't know this category, but I don't want to say it's a commodity trade. I'm sure there's expertise involved, but we're not building skyscrapers here, right? We're paving a parking lot. I mean, I'm not talking about roads, but just using a parking lot as an example to me is.
I mean, there's work there with drainage and proper, the things to be done, but to Marcy's point, if you put a bid out there, people come and look at the road, they bid on it, verify a price, then we should be holding them to the price for their work. I don't know what the overage was on the thing, but why are we paying the overages on a contract? We just need to write better contracts.
Well, I think that's part of it is that with it, they didn't have, we used to have this position, right? This isn't a new thing to the town.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But then again, it went away, 10 years ago?
I don't know, Tim, do you remember when we lost the engineer? I don't think maybe 10, but I feel like it was less than that.
I'm here 9, I think, in 9 years, and we haven't had it that time.
Larry?
I don't really have a position on this one because I just don't understand it quite well enough. But just to make a few points. One is that in my experience, if you hire outside companies to do work for you, you have to sit on top of them, no matter how qualified they are. I've hired people to do chip design and board layout and software development and all sorts of stuff. And I've never gotten away with sitting on top of them almost continually in some cases, certainly, several times a week. So I don't think it's realistic to simply assume that you're going to hire somebody and not have to manage the project overall, that you can just walk away and assume they're going to do the right thing. And honestly, my personal experience with some of the projects in town is the right thing just doesn't happen. We have roads here that have been paved 3 times in 20 years, and they're still falling apart and breaking off because nobody did the drainage right, nobody did the edges correctly. So, from that point of view, having somebody whose job it is to watch over these things does make sense to me. And that's about all of the insight I can bring to this, but that's my point of view there.
So Larry, in your opinion, and I appreciate it, is a junior position sufficient and sufficiently experienced enough to do that role?
Well, like Adam, I've never built roads and I have no experience at all there, so I can't answer that part of the question.
Not
It's
sure
not,
how
I mean, it's not that junior. It's the same level as the rest of the supervisors, right?
But it doesn't have a PE stamp, and you're asking them to.
We're not asking them to do professional engineering. We're asking them to review professional engineering and do road stuff.
I guess that's my point. You're asking them to review things without a final. And maybe it's a piece of paper, they haven't taken a test, and there's someone, there's lots of carpenters who are out there who are junior carpenters who aren't master carpenters, but maybe it's the right person in the job who has to do it. It's just, I don't know. Maybe if you have that PE stamp, so whoever has the PE stamp is the final say on it. So if we're having our head of DPW has got to sign off and review it anyway, why are we having someone else do it? He should be, if he's not doing it. If he needs an assistant,
Well,
which is basically what this sounds, what this is coming out to
Yeah.
be. Is basically an
it's going to
assistant.
be like his right hand that can help draft the documents so that he doesn't have to do it, and that can do CAD, and then he just has to review it and stamp it, which is what most of these firms do, right? They have a junior consultant come out, do the majority of the work, and then they go to the engineer and say, this look good, and they go.
Yeah, that's fair.
We do have one of our select board members has their hand raised. Is that okay if I bring Ms. Cook over?
Please.
Kathy, you should be able to talk.
Hello,
Hello,
you can hear me?
we can.
So just to maybe add a little bit more color to the question whether the project should be done right without any supervision. We've had 2 recently that you could have, they would save us a lot of effort and concern if they had been done right. There's a street that's behind St. Anne's where the resident is very upset about the way the street was finished in front of his house, so we're dealing with that. They're gonna have to go back and redo that piece of it. Second, if anybody's driven on Parkerville Road since they finished that one and gone a little bit too fast, I don't know if you know, but there are speed humps and there's speed bumps, which got explained to me recently. The middle one apparently has been built too high. It's 5 inches instead of 4 inches. So that's why your bottom of your car will scrape when you go over that one. So those are just 2 very specific examples of 2 very recent projects that if we'd had a road person that could get out there and actually monitor this, probably wouldn't have happened. The third thing, and this one's to Adam and to Marcy. I thought Bill did a pretty good job with the math as far as explaining how any mistake in compaction, 1% less compacted than it should be, would result in a substantial reduction in the life of the road. So when you do the math, just that alone, getting it right, would more than pay for a salary down. Obviously, you have to have made a mistake. But I know when we paved my road, which is a private road a few years ago, we went out and checked it, and they had not put enough compaction. We made them come back and do it again. We actually took a little stick out there and measured and showed them that they didn't do what they'd said they were going to do. So I think it's probably pretty common for this kind of thing to happen, which Bill knows. Bill kind of is a road person. That's really his background. So I think he probably has had enough experience to know that this is really something that should be done, and he can't do it. He simply is overwhelmed with all the stuff he's got going on. So I think he's made a pretty convincing case that this junior engineer is needed. And that's all I'm going to say. It's interesting to hear you guys debate this, but I did want to at least add that there's been 2 specific examples of where if we had a road person, I think the mistakes that were made probably wouldn't have gotten made.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, so where are we at with this one? Do we want to put it to a vote and just do a straw poll? So like the really only outstanding thing on the DPW is just that one at junior engineer. Nobody else has any other concerns with the overall DPW budget besides that, right?
What was the value of that position?
80,000. And then benefits or whatever is around 25, 30, something like that, assuming they take it.
And Andrew, we should probably review it in the context of road projects that we think will exist. And so is it worth reviewing some of that?
The road projects that will exist, you mean for upcoming future?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we haven't done any, this year, like we didn't do a contract this year, so we usually do it every other year. There's about, and we'll get to that with the capital, but there's about, with the new money coming in, probably a little over $2 million of money in there, which is, a good chunk for when we do road projects. We had Cordoval Road project on the list this year. Select board was gonna do about, I don't know what it was, $700,000-800,000 of sidewalk work this year. But they were concerned about that getting done in time to use up the ARPA funding. So they kind of pulled that and they're gonna, they redeployed that ARPA funding to the capital items. So it sounds like we're starting to get to the point where there's gonna be a buildup of these projects. Also, when we do the road work for the Hopkinton water interconnection and, redoing all that stuff, that'll be part of it. So I think we got some on the horizon that it's coming. Oh, there's also, I think, Framingham Road tip project. That's another one that's coming up. All right. So why don't we just vote on what's here and then we'll see whether or not we're there or not. So I move that advisory supports the DPW budget 420, 430, 490 in the amount of $2,848,109. There's a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or do you think we're exhausted on that and we could just vote it?
I'm sorry, which row is that in?
It is row 47, this one here. I'll highlight it in red.
Which column? Okay. I'm struggling to see that. Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Sure.
Thanks.
Bigger
Sorry.
that you can see it or more that you can see the headers?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
You can always freeze the headers too,
Yeah. That's crazy talk.
So Andrew, this vote that we're taking now is just where we are today. This
It's
is
to leave the position in there as is.
yeah, but this is
So if you don't want to leave the position in, vote this down and then we can amend it. We can adjust the number down to remove the position and revote it.
right. But I guess is this our final vote on this?
I mean, we can always change our mind. We can always vote when we're at town meeting and, so on and so forth. But ideally, we would, the idea tonight is to vote enough things that we can put it into the warrant.
Gotcha.
Now, there's been times where we've changed it, but ideally you don't want to, if it's going to be printed in the warrant that we support it or we adjust the number, usually we don't, unless something crazy comes up, which we've done before, but ideally you don't change it. We could say at town meeting, and basically say, we're not ready to make a decision, we'll vote this one later. But ideally, you want to have it buttoned up.
To me, this is another example of department head who didn't provide options. The need speaks to me. Having a permanent position, I'm just leery with where we are with our budget and with some of the big projects like the Neary School coming up. You know, this is something that could have been outsourced, right? In which case we wouldn't be pulling the money. We might be putting a little bit more money in, but we'd be pulling the benefits out, right? Our hands, I feel like our hands are tied because our department heads are not giving options. They're just saying, do this. And it's not their prerogative, right? They're not elected officials. They should be giving options that can be discussed and reviewed. So I feel like we're pushed into a position where we have to say yay or nay on the whole thing. And it bothers me because I think that there is a lot of support. So honestly, Andrew, I don't know the best path forward here because I'm not comfortable not supporting the budget. You know what I mean?
Well,
there's
yeah,
a
we
small
can-
piece I don't like how they're going about it.
Well, we can see how we're doing here. So if we can take a straw poll and see what we're looking at. And then, you know, if we're not in favor of it, we can adjust the number down and do like we did for police.
Or
Yeah.
is,
Come
or is
back
this
to us
one-
with options in the fall and we can revisit it.
or is this one really for a town meeting? I know it's not your favorite option.
Yeah.
What would we know differently at town meeting that we don't know right now?
I guess Bill could come with more options. We could discuss them.
Yeah,
Or explain why there aren't any other options if there aren't, but
exactly. Because I agree with Tim on this one. I do feel like I'm in a hard spot on this because it does seem like there's a need, but there's only one option being presented as a solution for the need. And in one way, all the things that were talked about make me think you need someone with real expertise and someone who has a wide range of skills for all the kinds of things that we're going to do in town, roads included, obviously, but there were other things mentioned that would be worth having somebody's focus on. But, you know, in some ways, I think Kathy's argument, while maybe compelling to support this, at the same time, also tell me that maybe you don't need expertise to actually catch these things. You just need someone who has the time to actually be on site and review that things are going to plan and holding people accountable. And it doesn't necessarily need to be an $80,000 engineer because, you know, unless there's more detail behind Kathy's story, you know, she was able to determine that something wasn't done right herself. And unless Kathy has a engineering background, maybe she does. Maybe this is, pun intended, over-engineered a solution. So I do feel like I'm in a hard spot. I completely agree with Tim.
Well, everybody's reiterating what I felt in the beginning. I feel the same way, sort of. I just don't know. I just don't have clarity on it at all. And while I appreciate the comments that were made, it was helpful to hear other perspectives. But I don't know if that I'm any further to supporting this than I was before we discussed it, unfortunately.
and I see the value in the position. I really do. I think, you know, a town engineer makes sense, not just for roads, but there's other projects. I just question if this is the year with everything else going on, our budget is not necessarily where we want it to be. It's going up again, that this is, again, it's not a must have. It's a nice have and there's value to it. I have no doubt of a value to it. And it could save us, you know, millions in whatever cost to redo things and whatever. Just, you know, if the roads aren't going to happen now, maybe this is on next year. That's my take. Again, I certainly see the value in the position and why there weren't choices made, Tim, and I agree with you. You could outsource this. I think $80,000 for a full-time position. I think we would more than get that over the costs of the outside consultants to do that. I think the value is there. I'd still just a nice to have, not a must have.
Yeah, and I think And I think we did challenge Bill on that, and he said, yeah, we could outsource it, but you're gonna get a junior person there. And it's gonna be, $100 an hour, right? So the cost is probably gonna be, obviously you're paying that person almost 3 times as much. But you don't get any of the other facets of it. But I think we're split on this, so why don't we, is there a motion for advisory to support the DPW budget in the amount of $2,848,109?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Tim,
I'm gonna say nay, but it's a very reluctant nay.
that's fine. Adam,
Yeah. I'm also at this time gonna say nay.
Larry,
I'm going to say yay.
Marcy,
Nay.
and Howard.
I'm gonna say yay.
I'm gonna do yay, so it's a split vote. So let's save that one now for at town meeting, I guess, and see if we can find some more information between now and then. Sound good?
Sure. Do you want to put 3 to 3 next to that, just so?
Yeah.
Nope, that didn't work.
So just out of curiosity, what did we actually decide? Police? Did we decide to go back and offer a smaller number?
I think we decided to offer the number minus the lieutenant plus roughly 25,000 and
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wasn't positive. Thanks.
Did we vote that, Andrew?
oh, we did. I didn't write it
I don't
down.
think
Did we?
We didn't, no.
Okay,
Maybe that's why I wasn't sure.
that's probably why. Is there a motion for advisory to support the police department budget 210 in the amount of $2,511,029?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right,
What-
Tim.
Oh, that wasn't the number they originally asked for.
No, that's so that's
This is the
110.
lower.
That's 100. It was originally 262,000.
Okay, that's
We
what.
lowered it at 110. Yeah,
Got it. Okay, thank you.
no problem. Tim,
Aye.
Adam,
Yes.
Howard,
I guess aye. Sorry. I'd rather take it all out, but I'll say aye.
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. Okay. All right. So are we comfortable with all of the rest of the budgets?
Can we go back to,
This would be a 4.57% increase.
we go back to,
We can still do capital.
yeah, there's the, Mr. Hegarty's budget,
Okay, the town clerk budget, this one?
Yeah. where he wanted additional monies for fiber optics to connect the rooms.
Yes.
You tried here.
And forgive me for not digging more into this budget before this meeting. Is that permanent wiring? And is
Permanent wire,
it,
yeah.
and does that include him still renting a system for these town meetings, or is he using the house system? Is there budget in his system for
Think
rentals
he's
again?
Still renting, but it allows him to not have to purchase something from the company or something like that.
I'm sorry, Andrew, would you be able to pull up that budget?
I just was doing that. Just
Thank
trying
you.
to
I
find out.
apologize, I don't have my home computer with me, so I couldn't do this.
Yeah. And I forget, did that come from a quote or that estimate? I can't remember. I remember having questions about that too. Were we confident in the amount?
I think he had a quote, but well, I mean, he's gonna stay within his budget anyway.
Yeah, I just
Here, let me share my other screen.
if I wrote that.
I guess my problem with that is if it's to go with the temporary system, it's fiber, just pull it down the hall. There's no reason to run it permanently, just for a temporary system. If we're adding that to the permanent system and using the permanent system, I have less of a problem.
It was definitely a one-time cost for town meeting, what fiber at Ethernet auditorium cafeteria to gym. Which I think he was paying for each town meeting.
What's driving the massive increase year over year?
The archivist, for one, the extra election that we had this year, we didn't have last year.
Thank you. It was the extra election.
Yeah,
It's the
and then
option.
the archivist was the main other piece, and then there's the fixing the town code, cleaning it up, and then the fiber was the main other piece.
And again, it's only 10 grand, but it's 10 grand. And again, is it a one-time? I don't think it says a one-time cost. I'd like to know if that is permanently run.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Okay.
run through, like, it's gotta get like run like out the wall and through conduit and like a bunch of different places.
Right, but if we're just using it as part of this temporary system, use armorized fiber and pull it down the hall and you tape it, and when you're done, you pull it up. Why do we have to run permanent wiring unless it's part of the new system?
I think his intention is to use it
Yeah, for every town
permanently
meeting.
moving forward.
Yeah,
That
But does that assume he continues to rent the system every year? Because I think we discussed this last year, that the system in there is perfectly fine. They just need to be trained how to use it. It's a waste of money to keep renting a system every time we have.
I think it was more about, if somebody remembers better, please jump in. It was more about interruption of service. Or I remember him talking about people, and I think this was in another town where people were voting in the main hall, and then they were getting up and walking to the auxiliary hall and voting a second time. Right? I
Well,
remember-
according to the notes, you couldn't vote from the cafeteria. It was just to
Right.
listen and you can have lunch. I don't have a problem by doing that over fiber. It makes sense, but you can do it over copper, you can do it over fiber. It's still just pulling a wire down the hall. If it's permanent, it should be part of the permanent sound system. If we're doing a temporary wiring to tie into a temporary system that's being brought in, bring the wire with the temporary system. It's not that much to pull a cable down the hall. There's a door right out at the side. You pull it right down and tape it to the wall. There's no reason to spend $10,000 to pull the wire. I know it's only 10 grand in a multi-million-dollar budget. It's just.
So
it's just-
in other words, what I think I hear you saying is that if this is going to be a fixed facility with, wires running through walls and being terminated in jacks that can be used over and over for other purposes, then that's one thing. And if this is basically to avoid dragging a wire through the hall for town meetings, that's another thing.
This is what, from our minutes, it said $10,000 is needed to run fiber cable from the Trotter School auditorium, visual table to the cafeteria and the gymnasium. In the future, both rooms will be used as the moderator will start town meeting at 10 a.m. and run the meeting until it is completed. No break for a meal. The cafeteria will be set up so attendees can eat and watch the meeting. They will not be able to vote in the cafeteria. So it's cafeteria and gymnasium.
Right, but it's still, it sounds like it's still going from the temporary system as part of the temporary system. It's not tying into the main system in the back of the room in the booth. If this is just to go with that temporary system to make it faster year over year, it doesn't take a lot to pull a wire down a hallway. And technology changes, so. What we asked for last year when we had this budget discussion with Mr. Hegarty was that he was supposed to use some of that money to upgrade or adjust the master system and train people to use it, not rent it every year. So it looks like he still has budget in here to rent a system for those meetings.
Yeah, he's still not using SAM and doing any of that stuff.
But it's not even Sam. The school itself has a system in there. It has an audio system and it has a feed out, whether it's to Sam or you take that feed out to a company. This bypasses the entire system we already own and puts a large rental fee into the system for town meeting. That shouldn't be. We should be using the systems we have to do this. And I thought we made that clear last year that it was for just last year and we shouldn't be in the budget this year.
Well, because we needed Sam used to do it. They don't have the expertise to do it anymore.
Can we
So-
put a pin in this one, Andrew, and
Yeah.
get clarity from our town clerk?
Well, I mean, he came to us and we talked about it. I mean, he's
Yeah,
still
I'm
using
sorry, I
the
don't-
he's still using the third party service to do it.
And what's that line item? I'm trying to see. It's hard to see.
So I think it's just AV coverage, staffing to from, that's the 4,600 here. I think it's. I'm not sure where the other one is. Yeah, IM Media will manage all audio and video at annual town meeting and special town meeting.
But what's the budget for that?
I think it's part of this contracted services.
So. Yeah, I'd like clarity on that, that if it's 50,000 plus 10,000, now we're talking 60,000, is, you know, how much is it really to run these meetings?
Well, I mean, it's $4,600 here.
Plus the wiring.
Yep.
That's 20,000, right?
That's the special town meeting.
Oh, that's your 10,000, yeah.
So this is the additional, right? Because this is $52,000 increase. Right, so the increase
But
is,
take the archive out. It's not
so
the
the
archive.
increase is
it's-
basically, I think, because they're adding the cafeteria, basically. And then whatever we had in the budget from last year, which I can pull up. Hold on. Give me a second. $16,000 is what he had in there last year. So I think
So
it's
we're at
16,000
16.
plus the 4,600, so roughly 20 grand, 21 grand,
plus the extra 10 to run the wire.
plus the 10 to watch around the wire.
I realize it's a one-time fee to run the wire, but still, that's a sizable amount of money to run town meeting. And you can all tell me I'm being ridiculous about it and petty, but it seems like a lot of money to run town meeting when we have all that gear sitting.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't know what the other option is.
What was the total?
21,000?
How much of that is one time and how much of that is recurring?
21,000 is the recurring cost for iMedia to do the audio video for both annual and special town meeting. Yeah, I think it's a lot more when we did the outdoor one. I think that was a lot more expensive.
And the outdoor I could justify because there was nothing there and you had to run it from scratch. Right, that makes sense, but
We may not have any viable alternatives for upcoming town meetings, but I do agree with Howard that didn't really see any, or, maybe an effort was made to use our internal system, but, I think we need to make maybe a stronger, more assertive stance on that going forward, perhaps.
And if there's I'd rather take that money and put it into the permanent system once and have it there year after year than keep paying $20,000 a year. It's just not a good use of our taxpayers' money for the 100 people that show up to spend $20,000. So again, I don't think we have any recourse this year. I don't think there's enough time left to make the adjustments. I just think we need to make it clear for next year that, or there's another item that needs to go in the budget for next, that needs to plan the upgrade, to upgrade the systems with whatever needed so that it's done permanently.
I think it also comes down to who's gonna run it.
Again, you can hire one person for $5,000 a day or $2,000 a day, 2,500 to run town meeting. That's not $20,000.
I don't know how much control Jim has over school infrastructure.
I don't, yeah, I mean, I think, Claire,
I don't know if you want me to save my comment to public comment, but part of this, the way I remember it is, part of this money was being spent to wire into the cafeteria. And the reason is because there was a decision made by the moderator to not take a break and to go straight through. So that even though you could not vote in the cafeteria, the moderator wanted people to be able to go in and eat lunch and watch the meeting at the same time. Now that's a moderator decision, and we get a new moderator, that could also change too. So I think you might want to take that into the mix of the $10,000 or whatever that bottom line number is.
and I also thought there was a trip hazard thing that he brought up. I could be wrong. I thought he mentioned something about a trip hazard. But again, I don't know if we have time right now to hold it and edit it at this point in time and try to figure out a different way to do town meeting in a month, but Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be too techie here, but this seems like a lot of money to solve an AV problem when, if the meetings were live streamed, you could simply rent a big screen TV and put it in the cafeteria and stream it over Wi-Fi and pay nothing, and do the same thing in the gym. So you rent two large screen TVs and stream it.
They are streamed, Larry. They are streamed. That's part of this. They don't want the delay, I guess, and that they want the hardwire service, but they are streamed.
I mean, just bear in mind that if there's so much as one registered voter who shows up and can't partake or doesn't have a seat or can't vote, Jim has to shut the whole town meeting down. And I know that keeps him up at night. So there may be redundancies built into the system, or it may be constraining his choices. I can't speak to it. I'm not the expert that Howard is, and I don't know what Jim knows.
I don't know that side, but if you're not voting from the cafeteria, you're just watching it. That doesn't hold water.
Cafeteria.
No, not according to the notes.
Yeah, the cafeteria, I think, is more like for you to be able to watch it live and then get back in time for a vote.
So it depends how many people show up.
But I think to your point, Tim, it's not just the cafeteria, it's cafeteria and gymnasium. Where the gymnasium is where you can vote. That's both rooms.
All right. We've put a little time into this. I don't think we can change it for this town meeting. But it is a conversation I think needs to happen again. With
I
Mr.
nominate
Harrison.
Howard as the town clerk liaison.
That's fine.
Here,
I'll take it now, but
and then he can have a conversation down.
but we should start having it now. So
Yeah.
he has a year to prepare and do what needs to get done so we don't run into this next year.
And I
And
think,
I agree with that. I don't think.
and I
we
think the cable contract is up too, so we can always negotiate this kind of stuff in that.
You know, again, there's not too much gear that needs to be added to the control room to make this permanent.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like we're gonna adjust his budget. Are there any other budgets here? Let me raise the top row. And that just screwed that up. There you go. Okay.
Can you remind me, did we vote on the ZBA already?
We don't think we, I don't remember if we did or not. I figured we would revote everything again. I couldn't even remember which ones we did before.
Can you refresh my mind why that's 130%
Oh.
higher?
The ZBA is, so right now, the ZBA is high because, so right now, you got the email that they're looking at maybe a reserve fund transfer for ZBA because of the 40Bs. So the 340Bs are causing Laura Davis to go over basically her hours. So I asked them, is she going to go over next year? Like, are they going to finish these in a year? And they didn't think that they would be gone by then. So I said, well, because they had kept it flat, right? Just the 4% increase. So this is the additional hours for Laura. So they're not coming for a reserve fund transfer the following year as well. Now, if those disappear, then
And it's just Laura, there's no extra legal. I thought at some point we saw extra legal fee, special counsel, but I thought that was already covered under a legal contract.
it's under the legal thing. This is just for Laura, who's, I think it's supposed to be 8.5 hours to ZBA, which just with 340Bs isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, no, that should be triple that. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. I forgot about that one. All right, so now we're looking at, and we could do the capital piece, but from an operational perspective, it's 4.57. All right. Do we want to vote the rest of these budgets? I think we can just do them like as shown on the screen. I don't think we need to read each one, and I can send. We could just probably use this total here. That makes sense. All right, sounds good. I move that advisory supports the operational budgets for FY25 as shown with a total of $62,034,009. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So we're voting all of them at once. We're not voting, you don't want to go line by line. We're just doing the math.
Again, we can do this like consent. If anybody wants to
Yeah.
not vote, I just figured it'd be faster just to do it.
Okay.
But happy to split any out that anybody wants, but. All right. Yeah, motion made and seconded. Tim,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
I,
and Andrew is aye. All right, great. Woohoo! All right. Capital and articles. One I wanted to talk about here is road maintenance. I know we talked about it with the select board the other day. I did get the information from Carla and Bill in terms of road funds. We have 200 and something $1,000 of road article left and about 1.8 million of chapter 90, 1.87. On top of that, we're going to get about another 650,000 for this fiscal year. So, you know, what's that? 2.4, 2.6, and the only thing he has right now is about 300 and something thousand for the culvert engineering. We may end up, if CSX ever does the downtown area, I think that's supposed to cost us about $500,000, but that was from a few years ago. So let's say that max at 750. So now we're at 1.1-ish, and we have two and change. So I felt comfortable lowering this number. down. So the total number is 650,000 because some of it's ARPA here. So basically lowering that 650 total down to 450. So basically cut this 472 number here down to 272. But I wanted to open that up. Again, I think it's just not the year to be increasing that number if there isn't a slew of projects that are slated to be done, and we can cover it next year when we get the beta study and we understand what we're gonna do with all this money.
Did that leave any buffer?
Yeah, I mean, they'd still have $1.2 million at least conservatively of money left over if something happens.
Okay.
Tim, you're the most experienced left on that understands this stuff.
Yeah, I'm fine with your plan.
Anybody disagree with me editing this one?
I'm fine with it.
And Howard, what was the other one you talked about? The fire truck, right?
Fire truck.
Fire truck. And you guys caught in the last meeting, there was some removed for St. Mark's and ARPA. And then
Removed. Is that St. Mark's has agreed to pay that?
St. Mark's has agreed to pay, I think it was like 96,000 total, but it was 50,000 for the defibrillators. The PPE, which I think was 25,000. I think the remainder was just a general fund contribution.
Anything on the fire truck or the police cruisers?
No, not at this time. Well, the fire truck isn't going to hit till FY26, so I believe they were made aware that that was coming, and they should think about it.
Okay. Yeah,
I did mention to Mr. Valentine that the trash trailer, that they need to make sure they incorporate that debt service into the transfer station costs when they do the stickers.
Mhm.
So
Right, so that'll go up too.
everything goes up. Death and taxes, right?
Yep.
Can you scroll up, Andrew, please?
Sure. I'll start at the top.
I hate to ask, can you refresh my memory on the library engineering?
The library engineering is the I think it's the grant match that we need to do for the MBLC program. Is that right? Massachusetts Library Commission, Bureau of Library Commissions. So that's that whole thing that we've been waiting for the last 10 years, that every time Ryan comes, he says, we're still waiting for that grant program to open up. This is like the match to do the engineering study, which could end up spending, and that one, I think it's just, I don't even think it was a match for the program. I think it's almost entirely state money.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to take myself back to the when Jason came and we talked about this, and what exactly is the goal here?
So it's kind of like the NERI project. So the library's engineering study is going to do the same thing, where you have to find like a new site, a renovation site, like where they do the options. And then, that puts you into the program for the construction phase.
I remember now.
Yeah. But I think it's, if we go forward and build or renovate the library, the 150 is a drop in the bucket in terms of what we would get back in benefit. All right. Okay, so I think besides that edit for the 272 here, any other changes anybody else wanted to talk about? None of this 2.1 will actually hit FY25, just so people understand.
Yeah, but we need to start thinking about that and.
Yep.
frankly just push the schools. There, that ladder truck at their new dorm is kind of a necessity that they should
Yeah,
get their
so
fair share.
it's a conversation to be had. So both St. Mark's and Fay have new headmasters starting July 1st. At least I know the St. Mark's one came from Deerfield, who was very large in what they did for pilot. So Deerfield actually helped build the fire station for Deerfield, the town.
Mhm.
So, I think that's kind of a to be determined conversation that when the new people come in, that we can start having.
Because I mean, you look at that for next year's budget already, and
Yeah.
already the skyrocketed. So
Agreed. Is there a motion to approve the FY25 capital articles as shown with the adjustment to road maintenance of $272,500?
can you just zoom in for 1 second first? Just make it a little larger. Thank you.
Or I have a really big screen, so I can't tell if who can see
I
what.
know. Normally I do too, just not tonight.
Yeah.
That's,
Howard, you got a new setup. I got 332s right now.
nice. So the capital maintenance fund. That's 50K was just that's the holdover to hold South Union, right? That was the minimum. Line 6.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the additional 50K for South Union on top of the normal 100 because
Right.
to see exactly what they needed there.
Right, which is the boiler or something that the minimum they needed to keep that
Yeah.
alive until.
And I think they were kind of keeping it in there just in case the building was going to be gone, momentarily, but assuming it wasn't, then the money was there for John. I don't think we talked about the recreation maintenance one that much, which is $25,000 to do the maintenance on the fields for resting it.
Mhm.
I did look into the field fees is much more than $25,000, but it's just on a revolving account, so it's kind of self-funded there a little bit.
I am a little confused why this isn't coming out of the revolving fund.
I think it's because it's an ongoing maintenance and trying to tie the revolving fund directly to this is for programming when they may or may not, because it's supposed to be for programs, right? For summer programs. I mean, but this could be for a field that they don't do any programs with that money. In theory, right? I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I think they're bringing in enough fees that go into the general fund to do it that I think I didn't necessarily have a huge problem with it.
Okay.
Now they increase it more than 25, then we have a different conversation. But I think if this was a regular like, oh, we need to, reseed Mooney Field, right? People would vote for it.
And we had the opioid article. It is what it is, right?
The opioid article is just to move the funds over.
Right.
It's already in free cash. You just have to procure it. You have to vote it.
And do we have any idea what the tricentennial committee is going to come up with for 30 grand? I'm assuming
It's
that's
in the
streets.
warrant. It's in the warrant, and we'll go through all the actual warrant articles, but I can where's the tricentennial one? Okay, See if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $30,000 or such other amount as town meeting may approve for the purpose of funding events, i.e. fireworks, parade, public art, etc., as authorized by the Tricentennial Committee celebrating the town's incorporation or do or act anything thereupon. The funding will serve as seed money to support the work of the Tricentennial Committee. Expenditures will be approved by committee chair, subject to approval by the committee, and may include items like patriotic bunting, memorabilia, assistance with digital media, or deposits on events such as fireworks, etc. And then there's another article that, and we'll go through the warrant to basically create a revolving account for them so that they can sell memorabilia or other things to do fundraising.
Okay. I have no problem with that.
It, and it sounded like it's pretty like with the other towns that did it, that's pretty similar seed funding that they gave, so
Mhm.
that didn't sound too crazy. All right.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the FY25 articles as shown on the screen with the adjustment to road maintenance down to 272,500?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Adam? Aye, okay. Larry?
You're muted, Larry.
Aye, sorry.
Howard?
Aye.
Marcy?
Aye.
All right, and Andrew is aye. Excellent, okay. Okay, now I think if we can, I think that does the budget, to just do a quick run through of the warrant. Everybody had a chance to read this lovely long document. So I think a lot of these, are pretty self-explanatory. We voted on them before, but I think let's just go one by one and we can vote these.
You're not sharing your screen if you're trying to. Just...
I clicked it. It didn't want me to share. Hold on. Oh, there you go.
Thank you so much.
Doing my screen now.
More Zoom.
More Zoom?
More Zoom, please.
All right. How's that
That's
look?
great. Thank you.
Okay, Article 1, pilot payments. Select Board 5-0. I don't foresee us having too much of an issue there. Anybody?
More. We want more.
Yeah. I'm just going to use the cheat sheet thing that Mark sends to mark down. We'll go through this and basically the ones that, are kind of boilerplate. I think we could just kind of group together and vote in unison. Okay, so. Right, so I would say that first one, pilot payments, isn't too controversial. That we can do that one together. If anybody thinks that there's one that they really want to discuss, but I'm just going to kind of go by the ones that I think that shouldn't be too much of an issue. You guys stop me. Town treasurer.
That's standard.
Annual borrowing authorization. Yeah, that's an annual one. The next one is contracts for 3 years. Again, that's an annual one that usually part of consent.
Mhm.
SAP, there wasn't too many big changes this year, but if anybody wants to hold the SAP and have Barry come in and go line by line, but select board voted unanimously to approve it.
I'll admit I haven't gone through the SAP with a fine tooth comb.
Want to just hope we can hold this one. People want to read it, but
What's the likelihood of anything changing here, though? Doesn't mean we have to be for it. I'm just,
not a lot. But if people just want some more time to read through it, I mean, I honestly haven't. I've listened to some of the meetings, but I haven't done a red line version.
yeah.
Why don't we just call that one ATM at 10 meeting? It's fine. The budget, we just voted. Then the next two articles,
Sorry, Andrew, do we have a red line version of the SAP?
I will, I don't, but I can get one.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll send it out. I do wish we didn't have to vote this whole thing every time, but here's the budget. And then the next is Bonnie's article for the police budget for the 4 dispatchers.
Hey, here's a question. When did citizen petition articles get moved to the front?
They moved it up with the budget, so it was done at the same time.
Got it. I'm not upset about that. I just was curious.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason they have to be at the end. It's just historically that's what we've done. But they, select board sets the agenda, right, for the warrant numbering. So they moved it up. So it was because it would be, basically if somebody say somebody held the police budget, we debated it and we voted it down, and then we waited, 3 hours or whatever and got to Article 55 and we took it up again, right? Just kind of taking it all at once.
So have we gotten it?
Sorry, go ahead, Howard.
Have we gotten any farther with regionalization?
I think there's certainly done some more traction in terms of Sam and Al, and people have started to look into it a little bit more. Westboro apparently now has a new site in downtown in an old school building that is not on a Superfund site. And it has a tower already because it's near the fire station, I guess. But so it sounds like there's some progress there.
I'm always hesitant about adding this just to take it away if we go to regionalization.
Yeah, I think the select board thinks that they'll, in the next year or two. I mean, they'll probably have their mind made up on the next year, and how long it might take is to be determined. But I think it's sooner rather than later. Do we want to do at town meeting for this one, or do people have a stance in terms of what they feel about the 4 dispatchers at this point? I mean, we've talked about it quite a bit, so I think we might have enough information. But
I have a stance.
I'm ready to vote. Is 6 for the salary and 7 for the benefits, Andrew? Is that how it's broken out?
6 is for the salary, 7 is for the benefits.
Okay, thank you. That's what
So
I thought.
it's in total 400 and something thousand.
Okay.
And how many jobs is that?
For police dispatch.
That's for additional, right?
4 additional, yes. And again, this is just technically they can't force anybody to hire 4 more dispatchers. This is increasing the budget enough that they could hire those people.
Or do whatever they want with it.
Correct.
Ironically enough.
Correct. Do you want to do 6 and 7 together? I mean, they're basically the same thing. All right, sounds good. I move that advisory supports Article 6 and 7 as printed in the warrant for the 4 additional full-time dispatchers. So a nay would be not to support. A yay would be to support. Marcy
Second?
seconded. Okay. Tim,
Nay.
Marcy,
Nay.
Adam,
I'm also nay.
Howard,
Nay.
Larry,
Nay.
and Andrew is nay. All right.
Select board has not taken a position yet.
Not that I have in this sheet. I don't think they have.
Got
But they meet on the 27th. I think they'll do their last ones there. The next two are water enterprise, the usual ones for water retained funds and the water enterprise funds. Anybody have any issue with just lumping those together in our consent vote? Capital budget. We just voted on to reduce this to the 272.
Should we leave that at town meeting?
I think well, we voted. The question here is, do we edit it, right? Do we edit Article 10 because it's a budgetary item or something down to 272 and then we vote to support it? Or do we vote not to support because it's at 472? Claire, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry about
Okay.
that.
No worries.
If we can just go back for a second, Andrew, you made the motion for 6 and 7. I missed who seconded it.
Marcy, I believe.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. So I think the question there is either if this article will stand at 472, then we vote not to support it. If the article is adjusted to 272, we support it. That makes sense?
How do we make that clear to the voters? If we're gonna adjust it ahead of time,
Well, it would just be in the warrant. So if the warrant gets edited at, with the select board, whatever the final one that gets printed, right, gets edited
Right.
to be 272, then they could put, advisory recommendation support. If it stays with what we have here, it's not support. But I think the question is, again, that who has the final pen on these kind of numbers? Is it advisory or select board? And they
so
might.
how
and
do
they
we
might
vote
say-
until we know?
Yeah, so well, as I'm saying, I can make it clear to select board and to Mr. Purple that right now we don't support what's written here. You change the number to 272 and it's supported. Make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm looking for a way to make it clear without killing it, make it clear to town meeting that we've reduced the number.
And that's where I think we get it, put it into, again, if we have the final pen, which I think we do by law,
Right.
then the number is 272. It doesn't, not even 472 in here. It has to be 272.
Right,
If
but they don't know it was 472 originally. They just know the final number.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's the same with all the budgets. And we started
I
that.
guess.
So that would go into our letter, right? We could say that kind of
Okay.
stuff, advisory letter and that kind of thing.
That's what I'm looking for. Okay, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
the story of how we got from, what did we start, 11% down to 4 and change?
Right. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And the original one, we needed an override this year. Okay, Article 11 is that library grant, which we kind of voted to support in the capital section. Capital budgeting, borrowing and leasing. Again, this is the same things that we had there, just as an article. Here's the prior year leases that we're still paying for. Here's the usual 9/11 revolving debt payment. This one is the environmental and engineering part that the select board has. I think they had like $25,000 in the article and they used 5,000 or something like that. So this is just adding $5,000 to keep it at the same amount. Okay. OPEB.
Hey, Andrew,
Sure.
just a quick question. When you say vote to transfer from free cash, do you not have to say like to what budget it's going?
No, it's still going to the piece. So you're talking about this article?
It doesn't,
It's because it's an article, it's not a budget. It's a warrant, like it's a multi-year article.
got it, thank you.
Because it's an article allows town departments with the approval of select board to hire outside expertise. Um,
So I'm sorry to be a pain.
Sure.
Why isn't that time bound? Because if the money isn't spent, then 20 years later, they can come back to this and still spend it.
yeah. Well, I mean, they should be closing out articles if they're not using it, but
But that never happens.
we usually close out a few a year.
Okay, I'm just,
Well, I mean, they used it, right? They used some this year, and this is just basically filling that fund to back up.
okay,
I mean, alternatively, they just come to reserve fund, but I don't really want to deal with that.
Can you go back up a little bit for a second?
Sure. So this is OPEB? That's what you're looking for?
No, I got that. Nope, that one's fine. Go up again.
This is the engineering fund? Or the refilling of the
Yep.
engineering fund?
I'm good, thank you.
And then, deductible for insurance.
Yep.
I don't know why, but they always use free cash for it. I couldn't tell you. This one is for the match for the grant for the dog park at Lundblad Field. They're basically reusing an old article.
Where is
right, what we
Lindblad
just talked
Field?
about, right?
What?
This is what we just talked about.
Yeah, well, changing the name of it. So they could have returned it to free cash, cleared it out the next year, and then
Right.
done an article, which is something Kathy brought up in her meeting that I brought up to her that I don't like how they're doing this, but if you came to me for $46,000 for a match for a whatever it is, $500,000 dog park, I'd be in favor of it.
Where is Lindblad Field?
It's the one by Neary, the one right on Parkerville.
I mean, okay, so just to play devil's advocate, Andrew, this could be returned, right? It could be closed out and returned, and because it's rec, they could get this money from CPA. It's just easier to do it this way. It's not better.
Correct. I don't
Right.
disagree, but
The money, you know, the moment that we change the name of the article, the money becomes available to them, right? As opposed to having to go through town meeting to close an article and then get CPA funding. I'm just pointing that out.
I mean, the money becomes available either way. It's semantics in terms of the avenue you go. I don't like the idea of just rewording old articles to reuse it for a new purpose. I mean, even though the purpose is slightly the same because it's still Lundblad, but ideally you close it out, you start a new article, but we'd be in the same place.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is if you close out 18, right, and then get CPA funding for the 46,411, that comes off, that the tax rate goes down,
Correct.
right?
But
So,
they didn't go to CPC.
right. Okay.
Don't disagree.
We can pull that one out.
Does anybody want to pull it out for 46K?
What does that really do to the tax rate?
You need to do $500,000 to reduce it 1%. So if you take 46K, well, it's not going to do anything because it's already in there, Howard.
Yeah.
Right. And the only thing we could do is we could close out the article, but it's not in the warrant, so it's not even going to show up till next year.
So again, the question is, do you want to make a statement of do things correctly or Just have a conversation.
I don't know. They brought it up in the select board meeting and kind of told them they're not the right way to do it, but we'll let it slide this time. And I don't know. I'm kind of on the same. I don't know if it's the hill I feel like dying on. I think it's a good project. I just don't think it's the hill I feel like dying on.
All right.
But happy to hold it if everybody else wants to. All right, I'll leave it in there. It was 5-0 supported by select board, if anybody cares. 150 for facility maintenance. We already talked about that one. Recreation, field one, maintenance one, we talked about that. Revolving accounts, just the annual one for that. I'm happy. Feel free to guys to stop me at any time. This is a cleanup of the existing revolving account to add the language to make sure that you can roll the money over year to year and spend it on all the properties. That's the one we talked about when the schools were there. I think it's a good cleanup.
I'm sorry, let's.
Sure.
What's the cleanup again?
So technically, when they created the rent revolving account that we know and loved him for over the years, right? That has
Yeah.
everything in it. It should only have Neary superintendent's office money in it, and it should only be used for Neary. So when you set it up, you have to put in wording in the article to state that it can be used for any property, which the original article did not say.
So,
Basically cleaning up something that we missed, whatever, 10 years ago.
but what is the actual? Okay. All right, Southborough Public Schools.
So it's basically not to restrict it to just the superintendent's office. So because we get that Assabet money and we used to get extended day money. And then, not to restrict it just to Neary, to open it up to the other schools.
So who controls that money? School
School
board?
committee, school committee. This
Still-
this already exists. The fund is there. It's
Oh, I
just-
know. I still
later.
I never liked the fund. It could,
Yeah.
it's right.
Yeah, now the fund's smaller now. They don't have extended day, but
Where's extended day?
it's in a separate fund because it's not extended day isn't a third party anymore. It's part of the school.
Right, but that was still revolving account too. Where's that one?
That's a different type of. Because there's no rent. It's not a rent revolving account. It's an extended
I
day
understand.
program account or whatever they call it.
Right, this is when the scouts rent the hall to do pancake breakfast or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in general,
Which I believe
know
tickets are on sale, right, Howard?
I'm sorry,
Which tickets are on sale, right?
tickets are on sale. They are indeed. How many you want? So,
All right. I'm in.
yeah, all right. Again, I don't have a problem with this. I don't like the revolving funds.
Yeah.
With no oversight by anyone. They're at the discretion of basically the superintendent. It's not even the school board on some of them. And
Yeah, this one's school committee.
this one, at least the school committee controls. I have less control over that. The other one, I think it's not the committee, it's the superintendent. That I don't like. So,
It's like internal, but yeah, again, that's a different fight for a different day.
Yep.
This is the special educational fund that we talked about last week. There's a cap on how much can be in here. I believe it's $500,000. The idea is to help use this money if there is a surplus to have the unanticipated, like this year, we're spending 600,000 more in special education than we were prior year to help some of those ebbs and flows. I don't know. I think I was okay with this, but
how does it get funded?
it to be determined. Right now, we're not funding it, just the creation of it. But it would have to be a part of the regular budget process.
Knowing what's coming, if we're getting at least 2, if not 3 40Bs, I think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
I wonder about the funding of it, where that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, we're not approving the funding here, but will to be determined. I mean, the fact that John wasn't too concerned about this one. says a lot.
Yeah, again, I think it's a good idea, especially,
Yeah,
right?
we're just, at some point in time, if we have leftover money to fund it, great, but right now we're hurting for money to fund anything.
Okay.
Um,
And what was the mechanism? Is that a school board vote to appropriate from it?
I think it's school board and select board. I'm pretty
Was that
sure.
the-
What?
Okay.
I'm
That
pretty sure.
was the double.
That was the double one.
Okay.
And this is the ability to do solar at Trottier, which I think there's a $2 or $4 million roof that's due on that project, which may help with offsetting some of that cost. So
I was about to say, can the roof support it?
probably that's a pretty new roof. But yeah, engineers will tell you that. But but that just gives them the authority to do the lease. I think I'm okay with it, but anybody want to hold it?
Does it cost us anything?
No. Well, we don't know. The select board will have to find what terms it is, but
Yeah, I'm more concerned about things like insurance.
I'm more concerned
I mean,
about when something
didn't-
burns.
Didn't Trottier have a problem with, because it's a flat roof, right? And I feel like in years past, Trottier had a problem with the roof because the weight of the snow was too much and it was causing parts to buckle.
I don't remember. I know the library had problems, but I don't remember Trottier, but I couldn't.
I guess it all comes down to the contract, right?
Yeah. But yeah, again, once we see them try to do something, then we can see what the conditions of it are. Okay. Regional School District Stabilization Fund. This is one that I am vehemently opposed to. And my justification there is because it's a regional school district, this general law basically takes away the ability for town meeting to vote on capital. So they can create their own capital, they can create their own stabilization fund. The cap is $300 million they can put in there. They can charge $1.5 million a year max, but they can also go to the State Department of Secondary Education or whatever it is to increase that cap. There's nothing that the town, and basically then it gets passed through the operational budget, which in our regional piece is very tough for us on the operational side to get away with not paying. So I like the ability for town meeting to vote on capital for a region, but happy to discuss further.
Also dead set against this.
Whose article is this?
Regional School Committee. Who would be the people that control it?
So let's say that there's a need 10 years from now, a capital need. Normally, they come before town meeting, and that version of town meeting would discuss it, based on its merits, yes or no, bond it. They pay for it because they're getting it, right?
And we choose how we fund it, right? We
Right,
talked
but
about
that's-
this for the.
Right, and there's something to be said for the people who are going to benefit from it in the future should be the ones paying for it in the future. It's not a function of let's start accumulating the money for 10 to 20 years down the road now so that generation can benefit from it. That's not, I mean, that's a huge basis of John Butler's cash reserve policy paper. But then on top of it is town meeting loses all control over the appropriation. They don't get to weigh in. They don't even get to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I could be convinced if it was like the John Parent Warren article where it's $100,000 that if something comes up and they need, emergency fund, but I think they have some funds like that, like revolving accounts. So, but yeah, the guardrails are pretty well off on this thing, and that concerns me.
So first things first, pull it out of our consent. Put it to the
Yeah, so
side.
yeah, this one we're gonna vote, this one we're gonna vote on. Well,
Alright.
do you want to vote on it? Why don't we just vote on it now while we're on it?
All right, does anybody have any strong opinions for it?
Nope.
Okay. I move,
Any other discussion? I'm sorry.
I was gonna
Article
move
we
it and then we
discussed.
can
Yep,
discuss it in the
yep,
motion.
Yep.
I move that advisory supports Article 25 for the Regional School District Stabilization Fund. For a
So
second.
moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, for discussion.
Is there another way to do this? I don't necessarily mind.
They
I guess
could
it's a moot
do,
point. I don't mind the idea of it, but understand the control issue. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think they had some capital stuff in their assessment this year. So it's not like they aren't doing stuff. We just approved Gronkplex, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like we're
Yeah, can anybody think of anything in the last 2 or 3 decades where the school has come with an ask and town meeting has said no?
Yeah.
This is so
Not
not
in this
needed.
town.
this is I don't want to have to go to both towns to get capital approved kind of conversation, I think.
Yeah, and then there's the fight. No, all right.
All right. Motion has been made and seconded. Seeing no further discussion. Tim,
Nay.
Adam,
Nay.
Howard,
Nay.
Marcy,
Nay.
Larry,
Nay.
Andrew is nay. So 06. Okay. Then there's the regular CPC articles, administrative ones with the set asides. Happy to go through that if anybody doesn't understand it. There's the adjustment for the state match coming in, $4,000 higher than we thought. And the set asides for that. There's the Burnett House debt. There's the library debt. There's the townhouse debt. The
There's
other
a lot of debt.
the other townhouse debt.
And none of that's done anytime soon, if I remember correctly, right?
Library, Burnett House is done. Library is done. The townhouse is actually looking pretty good. That's getting close. So that's the older CPC ones. I just messed this up. There we go. Sorry, lost my spot. Then the next new one is the $46,000 for the historic records for Mr. Haggerty. Remember, he's got like different pieces of that. He's got the another article one, he's got a CPC one, and he's got some money in his budget.
What's the total on that? It's like $110,000 or something.
I think it's less. I want to say it was like 80 altogether. Then it was 211,000 for the Peninsula Trails, which we had a conversation with Kat about that, plus the ARPA with the select board.
Hang on, don't move, come back. I was reading that. Thank you.
Sorry.
Do we have that money left in the CPA?
There is quite a bit left. I think there isn't even after this. I think there's still like $1 million or so.
I thought we burnt it on the last couple projects. Guess it came back.
We burnt a lot of the borrowing capacity, but now it's up more because we've gotten more, But, we get whatever it is, $750,000 a year.
And forgive me, what is the final segment of the Peninsula Trail? Where does it go?
This is installation of the boardwalk, footbridge, and other rail construction related tasks for bridging the gap phase 2 of the Peninsula Trail. This is, I think,
This is the connection from the section on, effectively, it's the connection between the section on one side of the dam and the path, the Pine Hill Trail on the other side of the dam.
it was that we can't walk across the dam, right? So it's kind of like goes through the marshes on platforms or something, right?
I think that's it, yes.
And there's a lot more documentation on this because they've been working on it for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we're known for our trails, I guess, people.
Yeah, it's always good to spend CPA money not in the center of town, but just spread it out a little bit.
Yeah. All right, keep going, please. Thank you.
Then we have the irrigation for the golf course. Some's
Why-
coming from the golf course revolving account, the rest of CPA.
This is another one I have an issue with. I don't know if we're going to discuss it further, but yeah, I mean, one of the things here that I don't think I've heard much about is the recurring costs of such new irrigation systems, etc., environmental impacts, alternatives to installing the $500,000 project. Some of those items have been brought up, but I'm not sure.
But I think there's
if it's
already an irrigation, so it's a
yeah, there
replacement
is.
system. So again, I'm not defending in any way. Just
I know.
um,
I know there's one there.
yeah.
Is it well? Where does it get the water from?
No.
So this is good. That's one of the questions we had for Mr.
Yeah.
Cundiff was to look at doing a well as well.
Yeah.
I think it does make sense to have it connected to town water because if your well ever dries up, you want to be able to connect it. But I think it could make sense if they freed up some money or had some other money to sink a well.
And how much is it going to cost us to pay the bill for the water? I mean, I guess maybe we know
the
that
water
already.
bill
Are
is
we paying
paid
it?
for by the property
The
management.
funds.
company.
Okay.
I guess
What
I
are-
would rather just see this come out of wait another year and come out of the golf funds. That's
So
what it's for.
So the problem with the golf fund is it doesn't have enough money in it to pay for the irrigation.
Right.
and
Next year,
Well, the contract isn't long enough to bond it. They tried to make it so that basically the revolving account CPA would bond it or CPC would bond it, and then revolving account would pay the CPC back, but that wasn't allowed. But the town could probably bond it and we could pay ourselves back, kind of like we do 9/11 Field, but they didn't really, they rather use CPA funds for it. But if we have specific questions, Mr. Stivers is pretty well educated on this. If we want to bring him over. Or if Sam has any questions or comments.
Do you know, Andrew, is this replacing the existing system because it's broken for some reason, or is this to upgrade an already working, but
I think
not-
it's both. I think it's
Upgrade.
just
Just read the italic part.
It's
It tells you.
upgrade. You know, Mr. Schoner was on a call where he says, it's likely not to go next year, but within 10 years or something to that effect. So again, I don't think it's imminent, but I don't think that really plays into my thought on it at all. But I had other questions, but I think the answer is it's replacement. And, again, it could break next year. It might break 10 years from now. Who knows?
Yeah, it does seem, Marcy, to answer one of your questions that at least they're
Reduce water.
hypothesizing it will be more environmentally friendly by reducing water consumption. I don't know if there's anything else they can do to.
Yeah.
It's probably, yeah, probably reducing water because it's not leaking. I remember screaming Sam over. He had his hand raised.
Andrew,
Go ahead, Sam.
this is Sam. I just offer a couple of comments. The current system actually is leaking substantially, so we're wasting a lot of water out of the current system. And also, the current system covers part of the course, but the proposed system would actually cover much more of the course and improve playability and basically generate more revenue for more rounds on the course. So the course is actually doing better and better every year, far better than St. Mark's ever did in terms of rounds and revenue. So again, the challenge is to find ways to improve playability, which the revolving fund has done some of, but doesn't have enough money to pay for the irrigation in one fell swoop here. As Andrew mentioned, they looked at ways to have the revolving fund pay back this money, but turns out by CPA regulations, we can't do that. So again, improved water use, lower labor costs. The current system is mostly manual. The new system would be automated, so wouldn't need as much people input to the process. So that's sort of the high level view.
Sam, I have a question. Who's going to pay to remove the old system?
The contractor for the $500,000, $600,000 here.
Okay. So that's part of it. Okay.
Puts it back in. And to your earlier question, Marcy, I think the discussion has been designing it so if the town did want to dig a well at some point, that could be an alternate water source. But that again would be a down the road expense, and we'd have to do some hydrologic work to figure out where the water is and create a holding pond, et cetera. So that's a bigger project.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you,
not
Sam. That's very
surprised.
helpful.
Yeah, Sam, thanks for that context. And I'm not surprised to hear increased revenue as part of the argument for why we should entertain this. I actually would love to see the plan for how they will accomplish that. And at the same time, I don't want this to be an increase in revenue that makes it harder for people in Southborough to actually access the course and more expensive for people in Southborough to play on the course. So I'd like to see the plan for what that actually looks like more holistically than just approving an irrigation system as an irrigation system.
And I question again, do we really need to put $600,000 into a system this year?
Again, this isn't hitting the taxes.
I know, it's still CPA funds, but what's gonna be next for those funds that will be taken up by this? There's always
Yeah.
something else for CPA funds.
Yeah, but right now there hasn't been anything else that's been proposed, and there's still a balance technically.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I would love the CPA funds to pay for more general fund items. But all right, let's hold this one off as well. And this was a split vote of select board, just so everybody knows. It's 3-2 yes. Actually, well, we're on it. Why don't we vote it?
Now we know who the golfers are. Okay.
Yeah.
What were the minority opinions for the nay votes?
Sam, do you know?
I actually don't recall the discussion, Tim. Sorry, I don't want to misquote people. Tim, if you want, I can try to find the minutes if you want, but
Oh, no, but if Adam wants to see the plans first, do we want to hold this one or?
you can do at town meeting. They have, I think, an actual irrigation plan. Could be wrong, like a bid document.
But Andrew, I don't think there's a 5-year projected revenue plan at this
No,
point.
I mean for the irrigation system.
Right, but I thought Adam was asking about the results of
Yeah.
irrigation. What will
Oh.
that do for the course financially?
I
Right.
think that they kind of used that the fact that this year was rainy, the course was in the best shape it's been for the last however many years, and we
Yeah,
had
it
best
was.
years, but it's
There-
So I
there's-
guess what I would want to see though, if it's not a revenue plan, at least, what are the current expenses to maintain the existing system? I'd like to know what we're getting for this rather than it just being, let's revamp the area. It sounds like it's 50 years old and there's problems, but
But,
Yeah.
but the other thing is the expenses to maintain the current system isn't town paid. Right, it's paid for by the management company if there's a fail, which is another reason maybe not to do this, but that's paid for by the management company. And our revenue is off the top.
Yeah. And Adam, the last year, the course turned about $70,000 into the revolving fund. This past year, $90,000. And they project that that trend will continue for another year or two at least, with the improved playability and the additional play, the rounds and revenues. So it's a ballpark number of what we're doing. And it costs about $500,000 or so in expenses to run the course that the management company covers out of their fee.
yeah. Okay.
People ready to vote it? Or you want to do at town meeting?
I'd rather see it
Okay.
presentation personally, but I'm just one person.
Sam, I'm assuming that they're gonna do, Tony or somebody's gonna do a presentation at town meeting too.
Yeah, Tony actually is out of town for town meeting, I believe, but one of the committee members will do a brief presentation about it. They've talked about that.
Right. Well, everybody okay with just putting an at town meeting for that one?
I think that would be helpful since we didn't, they didn't come and talk to us about it. It would be helpful.
Yeah, we're playing a little bit catch up here. Normally we would have everybody come in and talk
I
about
know.
these things, but hey, we're here.
I definitely want to be more informed. I mean, I appreciate the comments, Sam. I think that really helped. So
Okay. The next one is the opioid funds, just getting swept from free cash into this fund. Not too controversial there. The only thing we thought was just, it was strange that it was under the Board of Health and not Youth and Family Services. We brought that up with Sarah Castle and she was fine with it, so I'm fine with it. Then we get into the amending of the special acts and the Public Works Planning Board, decommissioning of that. If anybody wants to go into that in detail, but I think I hope everybody understands what's going on, but they're trying to amend the special act to remove the Public Works Planning Board and the Select Board as the tree warden. They're creating the Public Works Advisory Committee and, kind of revamping that process.
Did we fix where the tree warden? Is the tree warden still working, an employee of the DPW?
The tree warden is designated. It could be anyone. Right now, it's designated as there happens to be an employee of the DPW that has that role. But it could be Howard Rose tree warden if you want to.
That's fine. Something we discussed previously that I was pretty adamant about, that the tree warden should not report to the head of the DPW.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell your boss no. So that it is now, that it doesn't have to be, is it at least is a corrective measure. So.
Yeah. And if anybody has any in-depth questions, we do have the author of the article, Mr. Litt, here.
Any expected resistance?
I don't think so. I think the
What about planning?
Work Advisory Committee sounds like it's, pretty standard boilerplate in terms of establishment, what it will do, and organizational. I heard Bill's really on board with it, and
But what about planning? Are they on board?
I don't know. I think so.
Andrew, Sam again, planning is on board with it. There was one question about whether the committee had a sunset provision, 10-year sunset provision. And the select board originally wanted to put that in. Planning board didn't want that. Select board recently voted to go with the planning board's view on that. So as far as I'm aware,
Yeah.
planning board is on board with the proposal.
Right, I think you're right. And Tim had his hand raised. I'm just gonna bring the other Tim over, Tim. Mr. Lit.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say what Sam said.
Okay.
The planning board is on board. The DPW superintendent is on board. The Board of Selectmen is now on board. I don't expect any significant opposition. The town clerk made a comment at the last select board meeting that, you know, he would prefer not to have as many standing committees, but that's a separate kind of issue.
Thank you.
It was a 5-0 vote for the Public Works Advisory Committee, just so people know.
That's correct. Actually, for both no, for the first article, it was 401, and for this, it's 5-0.
Do you know what the abstain was there, Tim?
The abstention was Marguerite Landry, and what I asked her about this afterwards, and she, I think, was confused about what the article did.
Okay.
Because her response had to do with the committee, not with the special act change.
Okay.
But no one has changed, you know, has revoted it at the select board level.
Anybody have any more questions for Sam or Tim? All right, I'm gonna put you guys back. All right. Everybody okay with those ones to add to the consent vote? I think it's a good move forward and hope that committee does lots of good work.
I'm good.
The next one is changing the capital improvement and planning committee to 5 members instead of 7. We have 5 now, so
That's just because they can't fill them or they don't. I know we talked about this at the Saturday meeting, et cetera, but refresh my memory, please.
I think they're having trouble filling them, and I think the committee is running fine at 5, so they just want to lower it. I
Okay.
don't disagree. 7 can be hard. I mean, we're still at 6.
Yep.
We were 9. That was a
Okay.
5-0 support from select board too.
Yep.
The next one is MBTA. I heard that this might be pushed to a fall town meeting, so I think maybe we just at town meeting this one for now.
Either way, I don't like it, so.
Yeah, either way, we could do an entire meeting on that. So
Yeah. Or 2, yeah, still don't like it, so.
let's yeah, I could spend hours on this. The next one is a cleanup of the town code to basically when they did the downtown district, they need to change it in other sections where it only says business village district. Didn't sound like it was anything more than just updating the code in terms of cleaning it up.
Okay.
There's no summary here, but the lab one. That was also a 5-0. The next one is just to add a sunset clause or not a sunset clause, a specified period of time where the permit will lapse for a special permit. Which surprised me that there wasn't one.
That's just if it's not used kind of thing?
Yeah, so if it's not exercised within 2 years of the date, it shall lapse.
Yep.
And you can be granted a 1-year extension. I think that makes perfect sense to me.
Is that 1-year extension? I assume they have to go back in front of the ZBA to get that extension?
I think you have to, well, it says apply in writing. 30 days prior to the date.
Okay,
elapsed.
I got it.
It'll only be granted for good cause at the discretion of the granting authority.
Got it. Okay.
So forgive me for,
Sure.
is this because of the bed and breakfast?
No idea.
Trying to understand the, like. Ooh. Okay, it doesn't, it's not overwhelming me in its importance.
It sounds like it's just right now we're not compliant with Mass General Law because it requires a specified period of time, and our current bylaw doesn't do that.
And Tim, I like it that, you got a special permit. This is 2 years, whatever time you put on, it's 10 years later, and all of a sudden, by right, I had a special permit 10 years ago, I'm just gonna start doing this, and
What's the harm in it?
depends what it is. And
Lot
the
could
appetite
change
of
in
town
10
changes, a lot of change in town, and something could happen next door. And it could have been a new owner who just said, oh, the last person had that permit, I have that permit. And they have different interpretations. It was it was written as a garage, and one person's idea of a garage was one, and the next one's three times the size of it, etc. I think I personally think it's appropriate, but again, that's
It's
my
not if you have a special permit and you've done it and you've exercised it, if you built that garage, it's not that you're losing it. It's that if you got the special permit and you never constructed it and never exercised your permit, then you lose it.
How's this going to be enforced?
But basically, it would be when you went, if you went to get a building permit or went to the building commissioner to start work on something, and he'd be like, well, you're not compliant with zoning. And they'd say, well, you have a special permit. And they'd say, show me. And it was from 5 years ago. He'd say, well, that's no longer valid. Go back to the committee and start over. That's what I assume.
No. One more question. Everything you're saying makes sense to me. Thank you. And I think Sam might be an expert in Southborough E-code, so he might have to answer this, but is it generally the trend in our bylaws that special permits belong to the planning board and variances belong to the ZBA? Sam has his hand up.
Mr. Stivers.
Yeah, Tim, variances certainly belong to the ZBA. Planning board and ZBA both can issue special permits. The planning board special permits are mostly focused around site plan review. And ZBA special permits are based on use kinds of things. So you get a special permit for a different use, for example, in a zoning district. But that line is fuzzy, and the planning board is actually moving toward more special permits than they've had previously. So there's some back and forth on that one. Mostly special permit, though, is ZBA today.
Is the planning board in favor of this? Because we'll impact them.
I don't know what the planning board has done with this, and I've not heard them talk about it. I'd be surprised if they've got a very strong opinion on it. Again, this is something that is trying to get into sync with Mass General Law, as a matter of fact. And there have been a few classic cases in the past, whereas as Howard suggested, where a special permit was issued years ago, and the neighborhood has changed, conditions are changed, and that special permit probably wouldn't be issued today, but a property owner can claw back to that original permit and do something that probably wouldn't be allowed today. So I think this cleans up some of that, frankly.
Okay, and this will be a 2/3 vote?
Yes.
Probably, yeah, it's a zoning bylaw
Yeah.
change, so.
It's here for 2/3, and Tim had his hand raised if you have anything else.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that you're required to have an expiration date, as it says in the first sentence after Article 41. If you actually read Mass General laws, it says zoning ordinances or bylaws shall provide that a special permit granted under this section shall lapse within a specified period of time, no more than 3 years, and some other legal stuff afterwards. So
Well, Tim, wouldn't that, I mean, I don't know what the right Latin term is. I'm not a lawyer, ipso facto, whatever. Isn't the situation resolved already? The state says 3 years.
no, it says that the bylaw must provide that it shall expire. So a
Ah.
bylaw that doesn't have that provision is invalid.
So we've been out of compliance and we're trying to get back into compliance now.
That's correct. I mean, the law is occasionally confusing and dumb, but that's how they did it.
I'd say often.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you guys want to hold this one, or are you okay to vote it as consent?
I'm good with consent.
Okay.
But that's just me. So,
Going once, going twice, I'll put it as consent, okay. Next one. This is to allow, if there's right now, if the town offices is closed to weather or emergencies, there's no meetings. This would allow basically the meeting to be converted to a online meeting, which I think makes a lot of sense.
unless your kids are home and you can't have the meeting.
Doesn't mean you need to attend the offline meeting or online meeting.
The more the merrier. I think that was another advice. 5-0 selectmen's vote.
Does it give them the right to, sorry, I was moving too fast.
Sorry.
Does it automatically move to an online meeting or can it move to an online?
If they close. Maybe change by revising the agenda with the town clerk. So like we did for the meeting, like moving it to the public safety or
So
whatever.
I'm just curious, most weather things are generally last minute, right? And agenda changes require 48 hours.
No, not agenda changes, but posting of agendas.
So you can change the agenda.
That's we like, or you could revise the agenda right up to the meeting. And in fact, you can actually talk about something that's not on your agenda.
Okay.
Adam just wrote War and Peace.
Mhm.
Sorry, it's getting late. The next one.
So hang on,
is-
what was the answer there? I didn't hear it over the typing, so.
Sorry. I didn't know it was so loud.
Yeah, the next one is that stipend. for
No, hang on,
$1,000.
go back to the other one. Do they automatically move it to?
No, it just gives the ability to change
Okay.
the agenda to it online.
Okay. Because I can see certain meetings where it would be less than desirable to move it to online. So,
Yeah, no, it's an automatic thing. You never have to keep your meeting. You can always cancel it.
okay.
It clearly says may be changed.
Yeah,
I just worry that,
it's right now. It's meetings are prohibited when they're closed due to weather. Right now, it's if you want to
Right.
make it online,
okay.
then enjoy.
I can just see, ZBA trying to. Never mind. All right, I'm fine with it.
And the 781 is Marcy. She had to the computer restarted on her, so she jumped on her phone. Okay, so that's that one. The next one is the town clerk stipend thing that Jim added. I don't really know much about it besides it's $1,000 a year.
I don't know if he keeps bringing that sound system in, maybe.
I was fine with it. It's in his budget.
I'm just being funny. It's
Yeah.
absolutely, it's fine.
Um,
And well deserved, frankly, so.
there's an updated minute by law. And I think mostly it has like the exhibits, electronic files. If you want to read it in entirety, but the summary is actually pretty good. Let me know if you want me to scroll down.
Hold on.
But here's the summary.
Thank you. I'm good with that. I like that, in fact.
How come?
Because if you ever want to go back and look at something, having everything else attached to it is good. We have that technology now that we should be able to store all this with it electronically. Frankly, it's just requiring something that should be done automatically anyway.
Video, I mean. Okay, storage.
Storage is cheap.
I think it's also videos you're showing, not like the meeting YouTube videos. I mean,
You talking about a PowerPoint presentation?
yeah, it's like a PowerPoint video that you showed, but I haven't done one of those in all my time on this committee.
I don't know, I would like, personally like that clarified, like, are they, like, let's be honest, I mean, when I see video presentation, I'm looking at video of all you guys. That's video presentation.
Well, it's one that was identified by name, present at the meeting, and discussed at the meeting. We didn't identify a video. We didn't say we're playing the, Algonquin marching band video for the advisory committee.
Fair, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, if there was like a video, like imagine Neary Building Committee where they showed a video of the condition of Neary or something like that. And then we discussed it and
Yeah, and the PowerPoint that showed the building designs through it that you can go back and they're in one place and they're there and you can actually find them again. I think this is a good thing.
This is
Yep.
definitely a good thing, and it also, if you think about it for a second, just the fact that all of a sudden you have a searching capability that you never had before. If you're looking for some particular topic, I think that makes this really important.
But Tim, we can pull it out if you want to vote it separately.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
the next one, I don't know too much about it besides what you see here. I think this is probably just trying to get ahead of a pension obligation, and Mr. Stivers might know more about it, but and give the ability to, but
Yes, Andrew, thanks. This is one that I'd proposed, I guess, about a year or so ago. It turns out that with this legislation on the shelf, towns have the ability to essentially borrow to pre-fund pension obligations. We've got tens of millions of dollars of retirement pension obligations. And several years ago, when interest rates were down 2% and 3%, Arlington, for example, borrowed a slug of money that then will be repaid back over time at a very attractive interest rate versus what they would have had to pay in annual payments to the Worcester County, or I guess it would be Middlesex County Pension Fund there. So it basically just provides capability, should interest rates be favorably adjusted, that you can actually do something and save some money with this. If under ordinary circumstances, we would not want to do this now, given where interest rates are now. So it's sort of a possibility for the future kind of thing that I think could potentially save us a lot of money. Many towns around the country actually are doing these kinds of things.
yeah. And Sam, I didn't see in there, and maybe it needs to get added to the summary, but This would just give us the ability to do a bond.
Exactly.
We're not doing one in this. And if we were gonna do a bond, it would still require town meeting vote?
Yes, as
Okay.
far as I understand it, yeah.
All right, I think if you can clarify that for the summary, I think that would go a long way.
Okay.
All right, anybody have any more questions on that one? Okay. Next one is the Tricentennial Committee. And this is that fund I was talking about where they can collect donations, etc. And expend it. Here's the 30,000 we talked about. This was that Assabet regional one that I think our assessment was like $6,000 or something. I didn't have a problem with this one as much as I did the other one. I don't know, what does everybody else think?
This is still a regional district, right? That we lose control over.
I think so, but I think it's a different one because of the type of regional agreement. Because I think they told us it had a much different cap. Trying to remember what the right presentation is.
Again,
Yeah, what is this?
According to my notes, it had a maximum of 5% of the budget and requires a 2/3 school committee vote to withdraw.
yeah, this is no different than the other one.
Other one.
It's just, this is an end around town meeting. I mean, the other one was Algonquin. This is Assabet. It's the same thing. They,
Is- This also,
normally, they would have to go to all of their member schools to get a capital item approved. This would allow them to end around that process and just do it.
I think it's the same 16G.5. Let me double check that of the other one. What was that one? That was sorry. So
25, I think, was the regional one.
you're right, yeah, article, yeah, 25. I think it's the same Mass General Law. Yeah, 7116G. So yeah, it's probably the same, Tim. So I think we should be consistent.
So we'll pull that one out as well.
Well, we voted 06 not to support the other one. It's got the same language and same concerns from Mass General Law, so I would consider we support it in the same 06. Is anyone in
Just
favor
vote.
of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we vote it? Oh, might as well vote it. Just get it on the books. Let me just put it up. Okay, is there a motion to support Article 48 for Assabet Valley Stabilization Fund?
As moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, Tim,
No,
Adam,
Nay.
Howard,
Nay.
Larry,
Nay.
Andrew is nay, Marcy.
Nay.
All right, 06, just like the other one. Okay. Almost there. We're on the home stretch. The next one is the Atwood Street, which I'm not sure if it's gonna end up coming to fruition. And Sam, go ahead.
Andrew, I saw a message today suggesting that it's not going to move forward. There's some things that have to happen before it moves forward, so it
Okay.
doesn't look like it's going to make it.
Why don't we just call that an at-town meeting, and if it gets pulled, then we don't need to worry about it.
Is this the water tower property?
This is the water tower property, yeah. I think they were doing the environmental stuff, so I'm assuming that there was something funny with it, or they have some other property that they're interested in, but
They haven't been able to do the testing yet.
Okay.
The weather hasn't allowed them to do the testing yet, so
Okay.
there's no answer yet on that.
okay. All right, then there's the moving the money from community housing account of the Community Preservation Fund to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
What does that do?
So basically, moves the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and allows the select board and some other members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to spend the money and not have to go through town meeting. So basically, the concern is that if a piece of property came up for sale for affordable housing, to go through CPA, CPC, and through town meeting would be too long of a process, and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can move faster.
But doesn't it take the control away from town meeting and gives it directly to the selectmen?
It technically gives it to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but the majority of the members are selectmen.
We did something comparable in the past where we transferred money out of the Community Preservation Fund to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund so that they could move faster. Unfortunately, it didn't help because Shop C didn't have a quorum to meet for many, many years, so they couldn't take advantage of it.
So I think this is the same money, Tim. It just never actually got moved.
I think it might have gotten moved and moved back, Andrew.
Yeah, or there was something about it, but yeah, I think this is finally the money that was supposed to be, that was like
Yeah.
kind of approved, but not actually ever moved, but
I would have to talk to Freddie to get the details, but my recollection is that it had been moved a long time ago. It was never used, so CPA pulled it back. And then maybe, I mean, Shop C is very active now, so they might be ready for it.
but I think, certainly I know that Al's been very active in trying to find something for this money and do some things with it, so. I think that we haven't done anything for so long with this that if this gets it done finally, I'm okay with it.
A way to put a limitation on it? If they don't do anything with 3 years, it comes back, or?
I don't think that that's really within our bailiwick. I mean, again, it's the money can only be used for affordable housing. So the alternative is it goes back to CPC or CPA, then somebody has to put together a project and go through that approval process. So it's like, if there was something that was going to be approved and get done, Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a lot more simple.
All right, I'm good with it.
I'm gonna add that to the consent unless anybody objects. Okay. The next one is adopting a Mass General Law clause to have a tax exemption for Gold Star families. So the families of military servicemen and women that died in combat. Which I don't believe we have any right now, but. Let me know if I'll zoom down a little bit.
Thank you.
So playing devil's advocate. Okay. What happens if we go to war? Does the town not collect taxes?
Don't know. I don't know what the exemption is. If there's a dollar amount.
I think we've been, highly blessed for a long period of time, not having had a draft, et cetera, but there's no guarantee in these times that that's going to continue. God forbid. What happens?
Yeah.
Sam? Has the select board, you're in support of this, has the select board discussed future scenarios? Is Sam still with us?
Yeah, he might not be. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, we did discuss it briefly. The vote was 4-1. I have actually voted against it. My point was simply not the one you're making, Tim, but I think that this is a great thing. But to me, it needs to be directed at the family, the spouse dependents of the service member killed in action, as opposed to the parents. This is for the parents of the service member. So I think that, again, for me at least, the financial hardship falls on the surviving family that should be supported, and I strongly support that concept. So I'm not quite sure where this came from. This was a state law that was passed, and now we're getting on board with that. But your point is well taken. Today, I did ask the question, and the assessor told us that we have nobody who would actually qualify for this today. So, not, huge current financial impact certainly, but, hypothetically, it could be significant. On the other hand, that was not the issue that I had raised. So it was a 4-1 vote. I was outvoted.
Yeah, there is other ones that are specific to spouses and things like that, but maybe this is one that we might just need to talk to Paul about, because I don't understand. I also don't know. I think some of the other ones are like, oh, you get $1,000 exemption. I can't tell the dollar threshold, but I think by reading this, is it no taxes?
This is no tax on the property. Yeah.
No tax on the property in perpetuity.
Yeah. And as long as the individual is alive there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and the other ones, again, Andrew, you're right, are typically lower dollar amounts, but
Right.
there are several programs that folks can qualify for, as I think is very appropriate. So
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for this one.
No, I'd pull this one out, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna do an at-town meeting. I mean, again, this could, God forbid, something goes catastrophic, and we're in World War III, and
Well, again, we're also looking at this. Our job here is to look at this financially for the town. Our personal opinions shouldn't play into it. We all, as has been said, I think we're very thankful that we're not anywhere this doesn't play into effect now, but financially this doesn't make sense.
well, we'll have another meeting before town meeting, and we'll see if Mr.
Okay.
Sabelli can come and explain it more to us.
Yeah, and I find Sam's argument compelling.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is citizens petitions. The first one, this is a citizen petition, is the summary. Okay, that's not a great summary.
No.
Let me zoom out a little bit. See if I can fit it all on one page. There we go.
This is to not sell 21 Highland Street.
It's South 21 Highland, yeah.
So
Now, again, I don't think any of these are binding.
right.
I think they're just advisory in nature. Could be wrong. All
Andrew,
Sorry,
are
go
we sure that these haven't been? Are we sure these haven't been withdrawn? I thought I heard that some of Joe Palmer's citizens petitions were going to be withdrawn. I could be wrong.
I haven't heard. I mean, I know
No?
that
You haven't
select
heard
board
that?
was
Okay.
05 on all these. Tim, do you have any thoughts?
You heard correctly, but the issue is that you can't actually withdraw a citizen's petition.
I see.
The theory is, Southborough has its notion of a proponent, but that's not in state law. And the concern is, if 300 people signed the petition and one guy decides, no, that doesn't say anything about the other 299.
Yeah.
So both from my point of view, and I believe town council also came to the same conclusion.
Yeah, but do you know if it was all three of
Okay,
his?
thank you.
That was
Or all
my
four?
understanding. So
Okay.
I think his plan is to move to indefinitely postpone.
Okay. In that case, the 321 Highland ones, which I think were the ones that he was looking at indefinitely postponing, do we want to just put no, or just have them at town meeting?
I mean, maybe a town meeting in case they end up
Okay.
standing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's just punt it and hope that it gets pulled. And then next one besides the 21 Highland ones is for CPC funding to require 2/3 majority passing. And I believe CPC, or at least Ben Smith, was not in favor of this. This was,
What's the justification?
what'd you say?
What's the justification for that?
Basically it's the St. Mark's bell tower situation where, 51% of people voted for it, so it passed, but people didn't like the idea that the money was used on non-town property. So increasing the threshold. I think Ben Smith made the argument that, a lot of community preservation is done on property that's privately owned. I mean, a lot of historical property is not in public hands. But not advocating either way, just what he said. And this was a no vote by select board 2-3. So split vote.
And it's non-binding because it's citizens, right?
I don't think, I don't know, actually. Citizen petitions can be binding, it just has to be for a specific thing, but the other ones we're talking about powers that exist with the select board, so they can't bind them.
I'd like to see how the town
Appear
votes
to
on
be
this.
written as to be binding, but town meeting can set rules for itself.
Want to make this in that town meeting,
Yeah, let's make this a town meeting too. I'd like to hear.
and we might want to have Joe come in and talk about it
Mhm.
at our next meeting.
Yep.
All right, last but not least
Is
is
anyone else worried about a precedent for that one?
in terms of,
Slicing and dicing, what gets a majority vote, what gets a 2/3 vote, what gets a 3/4 vote, what gets a,
I agree. It could become discriminatory depending on what you're slicing and dicing.
But at the same time, it is the town's right to decide how they spend their money and what the threshold should be. I don't,
just, John Butler talked about this. If you want to change town law, you should do it the right way, right? You shouldn't be sending that law and trying to modify town law on the floor of town meeting. You should be writing a petition to get town meeting to create a committee to research it and to bring something back. This is sloppy. No offense to anybody, including Joe, but this is something I think people like Mr. Butler are going to speak, regardless of the issue itself, just because of the process. People are going to not be happy with this.
All right, but I think at town meeting is probably the right call. All right, and then the last one is basically similar to the one from last year about the regional. So
Is this
basically,
Mr. Butler's?
this is Butler and Miss Vaniff. So basically, coming back to town meeting for a recommendation on an IMA.
I kind of sort of agree with Al on that, right? The IMA is 100% within the purview of the select board, and if you want, if you want to give your opinion, go to the select board meeting, and if you don't like what they decide on, then vote them out. I'm surprised John Butler brought this to town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not binding, right? So this is a recommendation for town meeting's recommendation on the terms of the IMA. But again, the IMA is not.
Just makes for a very late evening,
Yeah.
Yep.
and
Do we
it's
wanna
something
vote
that
this
could
now,
easily
or-
be handled. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So do we want to vote this one now? We've already voted it last year, so.
I think in the past, we voted what, not to support it, I think?
Correct. Or that's my recollection.
Which I'm probably leaning towards, and select board was 2-3 not in favor of it. But if anybody wants to, we could have Bonnie or John come in and talk, but. I think it's, again, last year, I had just had a problem with advisory articles in general. Like, if you want the select board to come to town meeting to ask for a recommendation, then go to select board's meeting and bring it up.
Yeah.
You don't need a citizen's petition to force them to come to town meeting.
I mean, you could write a citizen's petition saying that the ZBA has to come to town meeting before they rule on a 40B.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make sense. Just show up into the venue where it's happening.
I think in terms of that kind of concept of advisory in town meeting, citizens petition, I'd probably vote not to support it, but. I certainly think that if select board would like town meetings input on an IMA, then certainly bring it, but I think it's up to them.
Are we going to vote on this one tonight, Andrew, since we're doing consent agendas with everything else, or no?
Well, the other ones we did at town meeting, so if people feel like they know enough
Okay.
of this one, we can vote it. This is the last one,
Okay.
do we want to vote this one, or people want to think about it some more?
I can vote.
I can vote too.
I can vote now.
I move that advisory committee supports Article 56 for the rec citizen petition. Is there a
So
second?
moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Tim,
Nay.
Howard,
Nay.
Adam,
Nay.
Larry,
Nay.
Marcy,
Nay.
Andrew is nay. All right, this one's 06. Okay, so
And
All
next,
right.
we need an article next year that limits the number of articles you can have it per town meeting.
citizen
Wait.
petition that limits the number of
That's
citizens.
right, that's right. Get it in early, get it fast, that's right. So-
Okay, so for the consent agenda, let me put my screen up. Stop sharing that one. Okay, so all the ones with X's here, so.
I can't read it, I'm sorry.
Yep, I need to make this bigger. Let me hide some of these columns. Well, that's fine. Doesn't really want me to do it. Okay. Can you see it now, Tim?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna make the motion because I have it in front of me easier. And I move that advisory supports Articles 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 35, 36, 37, 38, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, and 50 as shown on the screen and in the draft warrant.
So moved.
There a second? Okay. Any discussion? Anybody want to make sure that that looks good, but I think we have it right. All right, roll call vote. Tim,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Larry.
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. All right, excellent. Thank you. Whew. All right, good job, everybody. That's a marathon meeting right there. Let's see, double check the agenda. Any business properly brought forth? Seeing none. Public comment? Tim, did you have something?
Yeah, I had a couple things from your earlier discussion. I won't take long. First thing is, when you were talking about the town clerk's fiber proposal, you were concerned that it would affect this year's town meeting. This is the budget for next year, so the earliest it could affect would be a fall town meeting. You're perfectly free to do what you wish in terms of the upcoming March town meeting. Then in terms of the public records fees, it is true that there is a $25 an hour maximum unless you go to the supervisor of records. But what's actually required in either case is that you use the prorated hourly rate of the lowest cost employee capable of doing the work. So if it really takes a lieutenant, then it would be, his prorated hourly rate. I don't know that we get any money back, but anyhow, that's the requirement. And then finally, with respect to video storage, yeah, storage is cheap if you're doing the storage. I'm not sure, but I think that the body cam vendor is actually hosting the storage for these, and those prices can be kind of wild. The
should
state
be both
records
respectfully.
retention requirements for this vary depending on what's on the footage. So even to sort out how much you keep, you need to look at it and determine. So for example, something that involves a death or it's required to be kept permanently, use of force, 10 years, a motor vehicle accident, 3 years, all the way going down to 1 year. So that, if that helps you, at least those are some facts you can use.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Mary
moved.
says yes.
To adjourn.
So moved, seconded by Adam. I gave that to Adam. All those in favor, Tim.
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Marcy.
Aye.
All right, thank you, and I am I. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, all.
We did it.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.